real walls that walks the line. There's a rare few who think outside the box together for the crew. To break the equations, not bound to any rule. Exposing to the world the universe's own view. It takes the talent of the craftsman, it takes the mind of the fool, to make the vision realize energy and matter in a duel. To a break, to a duel. The old man Bills was running through his head. Cheryl probably got it hiding under his bed. Penny up the ante, making power for days. Don't listen to a word that the straight dope says. Mike building batteries that power a ship. Victor comes in talking math, that's the water spiral dip. Sean chucking plasma bolts a mile long. Sheila on the video making tone chucking prongs. Bernie breaking matter, they said it couldn't be done. And to all the people in the chat, I know you're having fun. So it's time to spend your Saturday with the dope big old man Bills.
What's going on, everybody? Hey. God, sorry about Monday, man. Personal stuff come up. Dude, I'm excited, man. Dispatch is in the chat right now, and he's asking everybody a question, predictions for the end of the year. Get him into them. I got a couple questions for you out there myself. So we're working on Gravity Flyer again, and we're going real heavy on this one, guys. Got some cool stuff planned. Robert is helping me out, and we're actually setting up a system. So everybody wanted Arduino to tune a program to look at everything that is tuned on it, to see where each level of every field is. We're absolutely going forward with that. Robert has decided to help me out. Lightspeed out there, man. Thank you. He's setting it up for all the computer algorithm stuff. So all we have to do is put in our sensors, put them out there, get everything tested, hook in all of our systems to it, and buddy, we're off to the races, man. We're going to be able to do this thing, get everything precise. Love it, man. Totally awesome deal on it. I just want to let everybody know that. So the prediction on that one would be, is my Gravity Flyer going to lift by the end of the year? So if you guys want to get that to dispatch out there. Also, I had one other one. And Joe will be here in just a few minutes, man. He's running a little bit late. I have my sub count, right? And we're just under 10,000. My question is, will we hit 15 by next year, or will it be higher? So, guys, get that one into dispatch as well. Those are my two, and I'm sure he's got a couple more. I guess one of them will we be visited by aliens? Will 3i Atlas be the conduit why we get aliens or something? That'd be one of them, I guess. Pretty interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and say no on that one, but I wish it was a yes. Right on, guys. This is cool. So dude, I'm totally excited about the Gravity Flyer, by the way, because I found out one thing that I was missing before, and I gotta admit, man, I'm gonna tell you right now, I used some Chat GPT, and I was able to check some things out, guys. And one of the things I found was eddy currents are more special than we thought they were. Not a lot of people use them. And I put out a video today on my Gravity Flyer so that everybody can see that. Guys, we got some exciting stuff going on there. And it makes sense because what we're looking at is we're looking to make a superconductor out of this aluminum. And in order to do that, we need to hit this thing with a bunch of energy. And I don't mean like in the way people think, but the right energies. You know what I mean? We got to get the eddy current going higher, and then we have to get the piezoelectric disc to hit it at the right times, and then we can amplify it. So, dude, I'm way excited about that. The algorithm that Robert's putting together, man, totally awesome on this. So we'll be able to check it out at real time, see what's going on. We're looking to condense the gaseous state into a plasma on the outside. We're going to shred the swinger limit. So get ready, guys. It's going to be fun. Joe, what's up, brother?
I'm shredding the fucking stringer limit. That's what I'm doing this Friday.
That's right. Oh, man. Hey, I just got to say right now, man, we got a new member, Richard Presswell. Right on, brother. Thank you.
And do I remember who? Now that my tripod ejected my phone.
Oh. I want to thank Darren, man. He threw out 5 Old Man Build memberships. Darren, we got a show for you today, man. We're talking about motors today and Tesla coils. So thank you for that. Man, I'm excited, dude. Joe, I went ahead and said it, dude. The quiet part out loud, dude. We figured out that we needed eddy current more than we ever thought we did. And we absolutely, because Joe and I talked yesterday, and we went over it, and it was like an aha moment in my brain. I was like jumping like a little giddy rabbit, because we figured it out. And then when I put it in Chat GPT, I was telling everybody I was using it today. I'm guilty, and I found out why.
This is an entirely new Nathan bun. This is fresh ground up. This is internal field geometry, believing, Chat GPT using Nathan. It's good stuff, man.
Well, Joe said it's only a matter of time that I converted over to regular physics. So, well, this is your time to shine, Joe, because I'm putting stuff down in regular physics. We're writing papers on the stuff. We're putting in the correct math, and it's all starting to add up.
When you realize that the fringe science, it's not fringe at all. It's just that they have this compartmentalization that occurs with these laws, and they really are very resistant to trying to unify things, because what you start to realize is you can unify it simply like we're doing with the RAV, but once you realize that everything works like the RAV, and that's just the repeat cycle that occurs natively, well, then all of a sudden you have a unified theory, and you know how physicists feel about unified theories.
Oh, yeah.
So
No. We could do better than that, Joe. Let me just tell everybody. We're not just going to give you a unified theory, but by the time we're done with this RAV, it's going to be literally, I can tie in everything everybody said was fringe directly into the unified theory and use all of it. Not only that, I can explain all of the symbols that are around the planet and what they mean in this whole physics theory. They've been telling us this for thousands and thousands of years, and I finally figured out they're describing plasma physics, but it's more than that. It has to do with creation itself and transmutation. It's way beyond what everybody thought. I mean, this is literally, we're taking light, we're converting it to matter. We're taking, we're taking light to plasma. We're taking plasma to matter. This is the Holy Grail. And I mean that literally.
it is the Holy Grail. And literally, like you said, in fact, we identified the Holy Grail previously.
That's correct.
And as it turns out, that is just simply, in fact, the repeating pattern that you see in solar system, in plasma physics, in plasmoids. But the way that they go about creating it all is so different than how we are doing it here in the laboratory. Now, I think that the implication is that how it works on the larger scale in the solar system and beyond is probably more like how we do it than the way anybody else is. So yeah, and that's the thing, is that it's not that none of this stuff has ever been observed before. It's just never been achieved in this simplistic of a fashion, because they're forcing the hand in the laboratory. They're forcing things to go into states that they're not comfortable in. And the result of that is that it's in a constant fight of escape. And in this, it separates and organizes itself in that manner and stabilizes itself in a non-equilibrium So when you have a stable non-equilibrium, that isn't, it's also not stagnant. It's got flow still through it, right? So you're preventing the one thing that occurs when you have a pure form of non-equilibrium, which is annihilation. The annihilation occurs in states of pure unequilibrium, but as long as things keep moving, then it really just rides that line of separation. And how do you do that? You do that through the asymmetric exchange of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Like, it really is that simple. This whole thing could be summed up just by saying that if you're able to regulate a reaction in an intermedium, and have an energy exchange in an asymmetric proportional fashion, then you can achieve this state.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
The funnier thing is, Joe, Robert and I were just talking about that earlier today, because the goal here is to put out the sensors like Sean did on the gravity flyer and on the RAV, okay? Compare the two and see what the speeds are and everything, right?
Mhm.
Find out where we get crystallization, check what the numbers are, how much compaction or how much compression, I should say, we're getting. When we can get the plasma to go laminar flow instead of have any kind of entropy in it, because entropy is like bumps in the road on both sides. So we want the fastest flow possible.
Mhm.
So we want it to go laminarly through the zones, right? So if we can do that, we can speed it up.
Yep.
So it matters where the compression is and what levels it takes to achieve it. So we're going to use the RAV to find out the levels. We're going to apply it to the gravity flyer and get the zones proper.
So you see, mechanically, we've already figured this out, and this is how a supercharger works. You understand? If you have a root supercharger, you have two screws that literally rotationally fit in with one another. That's where the laminosity comes into play. In this is the more laminar the flow, the less the torsion zone interaction between the sheath layers, because you have to realize that the torsion zones are made up of the two sheath layers coming into contact. So the less turbulent they are, like you said, the higher the efficiency of there not being any loss. And we previously, when we were just suggesting layer geometry exclusively, right?
Mm-hmm.
The laminar flow was actually less important, for the sense that you knew that there had to be some type of transfer from layer to layer,
Yes.
so because that's how the exchange works. So the exchange wouldn't work in these layers if there's not some kind of exchange inward and outward. And we had proposed toroidal flow, but there was issues with it at the time. Um, the biggest issue was Nathan didn't agree with it. The second the second issue was that there was nothing observable about it, right? Necessarily, although we did have the transaxial light emission, which probably is correlated to that. But to digress, what we figured is that these eddy currents that exist, and they must exist because it must be in a state of rolling. Okay, in order for, it's not just a spin, we know it's a helical roll of each layer, right? And that means that for the laminosity to be preserved, that means that there is fourth dimensional tunneling that has to occur. And for those that might have a hard time visualizing that beyond just the traditional, pinpoint down the middle of the donut, right? Imagine that your hands are both solid, right? Or both things, entities of themselves, but you could pass one hand directly through the other. If they're like out of phase in such a way that they're traversing what would appear three-dimensionally to be the same space, but the fact is that in reality it's not the same space. It's both here and there, inside and out simultaneously. So there's no interaction between the tunneling phases of this and the layering phases of it.
Yeah.
And
Real
that was
quick,
that was it.
sorry, Joe. Real quick, Jarvis. I just wanted to say hi. He was taking off. I just wanted to say have a good day, brother. We miss you.
Yeah, brother. Good seeing you in the chat, man. Have a good one.
Sorry about that, Joe. Yeah, Joe's absolutely right in the way that it's working. I don't want to go too much into it until a little bit later, but because we want to get to the topic today, uh, because Dispatch set this up, and I want to make sure that we go through with it, man. Right on, brother.
Right on. Dispatch set it up. Darren won it,
That's
and
right.
we want to make sure that that's all. We get on top of that, but more later. So
Oh yeah, well, we can go on that topic forever. Just to let you guys know, we're going to be setting up kind of like a little mini series on the RAV. We figured it's kind of the best way to go, and just do interviews between Joe, myself, and Sean. Just little bits as we go in, and depending on which part we're working on that day. But yeah, and we'll do some behind the scenes stuff for the members, man. We'll do some group talk, and we'll let you guys in on it. Dude, those conversations, I swear, Joe, are like pure gold.
pure gold. And the craziest thing is, and we've been saying it all along, but now we can directly point to things. This has been known since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
It's been known by people since the beginning of time.
Now we can
And
finally explain why everybody's light.
no, absolutely. And you could explain the moon and the sun,
Oh
right?
yeah.
In symbolism, you could realize that the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, the earth realm and the firmament and that which is above and below, is all the real deal. Because once you see it and you realize the correlation, you go, yeah, that's exactly the way it is, and it just goes on and on like that.
Oh yeah. Well, it also
Pretty
tells you
incredible.
why the organites work. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? What the flow of the planet is, where the energy is, some of the free energy devices. Dude, it goes into all of it. So anyway, I want to get to this. We're talking about Tesla coils and motors. Okay, is what Darren wanted to talk about, and in
Right
particular
on.
the center of the Tesla coil. So for those of you who don't know, a little while back I did some testing on this, and I had kind of an oversized motor um, for what we were trying to do, and it came out real simple. We basically put a rod down the center of the Tesla coil. I put a can in there and I wrapped it with uh, a 1/4 inch hollow pipe, copper. And then I put it into a rectifier, okay, full bridge rectifier, and then dropped it into a big cap and then ran the motor. So if you waited like 3 minutes, it would fill up enough to give you like a little burst in the motor. So one of the things we're looking for is does the energy itself transfer into the cap, and then can it transfer out of the cap into the motor? So did we do enough to get it to DC so it would run the motor? Cool thing was, ran the motor. Okay, not very long, not very good, but it achieved what we were supposed to do. I then followed up with that and I said, okay, if we got it to run that way, can I simplify the process a little bit? So in the members section, you'll find a video that has me taking an aluminum pipe and putting it over my 1/4 inch rod I usually had down my Tesla coil. And what it did is it took the place of the can. And what I'm trying to do is create heat. And when I get a lot more heat, I'm getting magnetism. And not only that, the amount of mass that I put in there with the copper and stuff gave me a little more eddy current out of it. So
Yep.
I was able to get it to run again, but at a much faster pace. So we went from, you know what I mean, waiting 3 minutes to waiting like a minute, and we had the energy. Again, nowhere near the energy we needed to run the motor continuously. So,
Well, I mean, the Tesla coil, the way that you have it arranged, is like both a step up transformer and a capacitor in on itself. So anytime that you're taking your voltage and you're ripping the voltage super, super high, yeah, you start to get really great efficiencies and you start to get the separation of differentials that allow for the better efficiencies. But again, that's at a very low amplitude, and you need the amps in order to, um, work in that circumstance to have it do work. So by just doing something simple like throwing a resistor at the end of it and or adding some resistance to it, you're basically then reducing the voltage in terms of amperage, causing hysteresis, the heat of it, and then you could sit there and better turn your motor. So it makes total sense because it's acting like a transformer. Um, and it does still potentially add some to the efficiency if you were able to get it tuned and working properly for that cause. Now, in that setup, it's a total waste. And I'll be the first one to probably say that, because you could take any power supply that you're running your Tesla coil with, and if you were to put that same energy into the motor, it's going to run the motor.
oh, I think we know that. I want to thank Charlie
Yeah,
C. He bought a Black Friday Tesla coil from me, man. Totally awesome. Thank you,
right on,
Charlie.
man. Charlie, have fun with it, man. There's so much stuff you could do that's outside the box. Don't stick to the normal stuff. Do the weird stuff.
I want to say this. The whole reason we wanted to see what the center of the Tesla coil was, because we know that running a motor's easy, right? It wasn't that. It's what is the energy coming out of the center? Is it regular energy? Is it the Tesla coil to convert? Because you can convert the Tesla coil, and we did it in later experiments. I took an AC flyback, connected my Tesla coil to it, and what it does is it gives you the magnetic field in reverse, and it steps it right down and gives you AC out of it. And you're looking at 9, 10 volts and about 4 amps, which is actually a great conversion for it. It's almost clean. It's
Yeah.
got some losses because the high voltage gives you spray outside the wire, and you have to put it in mineral oil in order to stop that. So that was one way to convert it, and then you can bridge rectify it and get it back to a DC if you wanted to. But the question was, is it powerful enough from the center of the coil to give us energy into the cap? And what kind of energy was it? And we found out, yeah, it's plenty powerful to give it to you there. The conversion's a bit different than what we think it is. Okay. But the joy of this thing, and I'll say it this way, once you dump either side of it into the cap, you can combine the caps and get a higher energy on the outside. So I'd get the AC into the cap automatically converts it, right? Then I get this, it's under the Tesla coil, drop it into the cap. I have to use faster diodes. Okay, so I use a Schottky diode now, and it's able to convert it faster. So I don't, when I look at the thermal camera, I don't get a thermal image like I did before with all the heat. I dropped it into the cap does a conversion. Okay, now I can add them together. Now I can use both fields because the field inside was free, but I paid for the outside field.
Right. So doesn't this raise the question then that can't you then run a motor off of any type of energy? Because the reality of it is we know that we could create energy or capture energy from the sun, solar energy, or light just in general. And you know that you could also take sound and put something into resonance. And if that, what you put into resonance has a conductive and, potential, then it'll actually have a voltage increase put onto it just by resonating it. So realistically, you could take any type of energy and bring it into play as long as you rectify it properly for use. Because the the thing about it is that you got to remember the infrastructure that we created as far as what types of technology we use in electrical systems didn't follow what works best with these types of resonant systems.
Hmm.
Okay. You see, you're trying to get something that was built to be inefficient, even in its most efficient form, okay, to then work with a system that is inefficient. Now, if everything went the way that Tesla wanted, everything would have been super, super high efficiency. And then making it work would probably require a whole lot less. But it's about bridging the gap between the mistakes of the past that we continue to perpetuate, and trying to just simply make it function with the way we ought to have went it didn't. And frankly, what we're seeing now is that it's not that that's dated and not the way, but it's probably going to be leapfrogged, and Tesla's stuff is never going to be the what you end up seeing out of any of it. It's probably going to be more along the lines of what we're showing, to be
Yeah.
honest, because it's a low energy nuclear reaction. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things about it is this, and I always say this: can you take one Tesla coil and start up 30? The answer is yes. But how do you get the energy out of it? See, this is why the conversion matters.
Hmm.
If I want the rod down the center, I'm doing one conversion. If I want the wire on the outside, I'm doing another conversion. But it's important to understand which conversion you're doing, okay, and to prove them out. Now, here's why. As soon as I do a standard Tesla coil in the center and then I just put number two coils around it, how do I get my energy? You know what I mean? Like, what am I putting it into? Am I putting it into water to break symmetry? Am I putting it into my capacitor to break symmetry? How is it doing it while I stop the frequency? That was one of the main goals there. It's never to run one motor. It's to see how many coils I can pull energy from in that field and not lose power from that wireless transfer.
Yeah.
That that's the multiplier.
Well,
It's
the multiplier too is just you need to have enough potential that your system is capable of falling in with, because once you have such a large mass that is in resonance and working with your system will stay in that point of resonance, and then that could almost be endlessly extracted out of. It's the same reason like a cast iron pan, it stays, it's big, it's heavy, takes a while to heat up, right? But once that puppy's hot, she stays hot for a good long time. And
Mhm.
as long as you keep throwing a little bit of fire on it here or there, it won't it will never not be hot. And that's where the mass and the in that case it's thermal, but in this case it's potential. If you're able to have something that has high potential, high mass, and it's at a specific resonance, and now you're tapping into that particular resonance, all of a sudden you can start pulling off of that harder, 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 because you're never going to cool down that pan.
Yeah.
That pan is endlessly hot. So that's sort of the caveat to these smaller closed systems. You would need to get into the water line.
Right. Well,
You would need to run it at super low frequency. you know.
well, that's kind of the thing. And then you see, all we have to do is take the water and just think of it as a medium in between the plates, which it is in any capacitor or in any battery. So we just took something that wasn't charged at all and we're going to program it by putting the coil into there, right? So we're going to break symmetry, we're going to put it in the water, and then we're going to charge the water and get it used to charging that same way every time, right? Build it up, break it down, build it up, break it down. What we end up having is energy stored over time, but the multiplication only comes in when you add extra coils to it, but we're not paying for any of those coils. Okay? They're automatically building the energy. That was the trick here. Now, can it run motors when you get it up to a certain level? Absolutely. Can you go over that and create an over unity effect in it? Absolutely. Is it as strong as we want it to be? Absolutely not. It's more of a weak conversion because we're not using everything as proper as we could. But it also goes to how big is the planet? If we used, you know what I mean, a bigger coil, how much energy do we need?
I love that you just said this. Hold on, because it was like my thought in my head. We always talk about the frequency of the planet, right? That's Schumann's resonance. Sure. Okay, that's easy. What is the amplitude of the planet, of that frequency? I'm going to explain to you what that is. Okay. It is the size of the Earth and whatever motion it has back and forth. That is the determining factor of its amplitude. The amplitude of the waveform of this 7.34 hertz, approximate and fluctuating, okay, is larger than the planet. So, and there's no stopping that, is the point, right? And because the Earth is in a low resistance field, so there's nothing to stop it. That's just what it comes down to. But we talk about the fluctuations in frequency and amplitude often, and some of the causes as to why that would be with resistance probably being right up there with it, right? So resistance has direct correlation to dampening. Now, if the frequency of the Earth is increasing, okay, that means that inversely the amplitude would be decreasing. Now, when you start to have solar events because of your decreased amplitude, well, no kidding, all your field size has just shrunk because your amplitude shrunk. Now, what are the conditions that something raises in frequency? Meaning that it's actually the Earth is starting to slip faster. So there's an acceleration of the Earth itself because it's experiencing less resistance, in order to increase its frequency, which therefore would also decrease its amplitude. And that's how, if you look at what we talk about with the circuits and the coils and all this shit, that's how it directly correlates to what you experience on Earth. And even what we're going through right now with experiencing a lot of these solar events, because if we're going through it, well, the sun's going through it first.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
I want to shout out Robert here, Lightspeed, man. What's going on, brother? We're having a good conversation. We talked when we started the show about the device that we're working on, man, together. And we're all excited for that. Joe's excited, man. I sent it to him earlier.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, whenever I hear Robert, I'm like, nice. He's heard words I've said, has ideas of his own, and he's putting things into motion, and I love it. I was like, Nathan told me about the project, and I was like, oh, like running it like an ECU? Yeah, I've been saying that. It needs to be automatically adaptive, but also adjustable. Okay, like you want it to be adaptive, but then you want to be able to change what it's adapting to.
right,
Kind of
like
twofold.
Robert was saying earlier, let's find out what's going on. Then we'll figure out how to push the buttons to get it to work the way we want it to. So yeah, dude, all excited, dude. We're all excited about that. The good thing was Sean's already done the work and made the photon harp already, so we're going to be able to pull that data. We got the temperature. I got thermal camera, so we're going to be able to pull that data, and we're going to be able to find out the energies, obviously, because that's pretty much a constant. And then
Yep.
we're going
We need to calculate the beat frequencies also,
yeah.
because the beat frequencies are. I don't want to give too much away. Let's just say that in the end, people, you're going to look at the esoteric stuff and all scriptures and writings and whatnot, and then you're going to look at all the Rav stuff and how that goes. And let's just say that the Rav has a code. I think that we could put it that way, right? It has
Oh
a
yeah.
code. So, if you could input your codes into your little ECU guy, now you're in control of the creation.
Again, Robert said the same thing.
Yeah, man.
So we're all on track. Okay, let's get back to the motor thing. Okay.
Yeah, motors. It's all relevant.
Well, it is, and people probably will figure this out later. I mean, look, I could tell you how MH370 would work right now.
Because we kind of saw it.
Yeah. I'm not saying that as a bad thing, dude. I think Ashton's 100% right. I'm just going to tell you that.
I think the dude's right. Man.
Yeah,
That.
I'm just going to tell you right now that technology 100% exists.
Oh, yeah.
Not only that, Joe and I have seen the conversion in order to make it work. And let me just tell you, Mr. Eddy Current that I was talking about earlier in my Gravity Flyer video is one of the biggest culprits in the whole
Yep.
thing because every plane is aluminum. So it can happen spontaneously in the atmosphere, but then you can make it happen as well. So, you know what I mean? It's ironic, and I give all the props in the world to Ashton for coming up with that, man, because he nailed it.
I might have broken that guy's chops a million times. Criticized maybe how we went about some of his stuff, and I get the showmanship. I get it. But I always said from day one, I said, this doesn't look hoaxy to me. This does, and I never said that I thought that was a hoax, for a second. And I kind of understood how it could be plausible, and I mean, he's explained it up and down. But I mean, and I understood all that. It's not the point. The point is that until you see and you create the things that then create the things that do the thing, and then you're like, oh no, oh, yeah, man, that looks familiar. I've seen that before. One time I saw, like a Predator drone, with the infrared camera, videotape this thing. I saw it. I've seen it.
I'll say this: we'll have to do a whole episode on it one time, Joe, because it's definitely worth it, man. Look, I'm just going to say this, and it's not plasma fusion in the way that you would do it in a laboratory at all.
Correct.
You have to think beyond it, because the first thing you need to do is create it in open air. When you create it in open air, you have to understand which layers you're working with first. You're compressing gas at first. When gas compresses too far, you get plasma. Okay? You just have to understand that. And if you don't have eddy current holding it in as the outside layer, as your impulse layer, it's not going to structure properly. But as soon as you do, then the lights start to turn on. You start to figure it out.
Fusion in a laboratory, by the way, aside from forcing, like I said before, forcing everything to occur, is they do it in pulse. Okay, and it's an event, and to contain the event, because they don't have a separation of differentials, okay, they have to rely on the magnetic plasma to contain the fusion reaction. And they can only do that for so long with so much material. So they do it in pulse, so that once the matter is exhausted of the fusion and you've got your gain of your energy from the implosion event, then it basically chills out for a second before it does it again. And that it's got to do it in pulse. Now the thing is that the RAV does it in pulse too, but it does it in multi-phase resonant pulse. So it's pulsing and then pulsing and then pulsing, pulsing, pulsing. It's like an echo, is what it is. It works like an echo.
There's something important about this, Joe. When you build eddy currents, they hate magnetic fields. So they automatically build stronger as you push against them with your magnetic field. So what did you want in plasma in the first place? I want a high reactive field on the outside that holds in my plasma based on the amount of energy that I'm putting into it with my magnetic field. So now they couple together and they grow together and they're not uncoupled. You see, they miss that in plasma physics because they go, I'm separating them, and then they make the wrong shape altogether by making it a donut, by the way. They were never donuts, they were spheres, and Faraday knew that. Maxwell didn't. There was a problem there. Once you correct the problem, you understood it. Now we get into the real physics of what you're actually doing.
If I heard Nathan say donuts one more goddamn time, I was going to send them the Krispy Kreme and be like, do me a favor, eat yourself to death, buddy. I love you, but like, you got to stop. You know?
Freaking hate donuts.
It's not a donut. It's not a donut. It's a sphere that quantum tunnels.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. It frustrates me because
I know.
By not understanding the geometry properly, you screwed up your entire project
Mm-hmm.
immediately, right off the bat. And I'm laughing at you because all you had to do was go look at the pictures of the world. I mean, open your little textbook from first grade and see what the planet looks like and understand you had a sphere and then the sun was a sphere and the moon was a sphere. I didn't see donuts out there. Homer wasn't out there eating donuts, okay? That was not in my first grade textbook, okay?
Well,
Just
I mean, just so you
understand.
know, and this isn't something that we discussed specifically, okay, but we touched on it when we were talking earlier. The whole entire formation of the RAV and the energy exchange as it occurs, the entire reason, okay, is initially because of eddy currents in the first place, okay? Because what happens is you have the energy exchange occurring intermedium in your matter, okay? And the one's diffusing out, so it's spreading, so it's like here, and then you have the other one right there. Now what happens, okay? They start to come into contact, but they can't actually connect the circuit, right? Now they start to cross, but it's not strong enough to connect that circuit and create a feed. So what ends up happening is that they start to deviate away from each other, okay? And then they go their own separate ways to then come back and swoop across. So it's not until they actually complete a full cycle, okay, that they then cross, which then creates the magnetic component, which then creates the RAV itself, which then actually has all the signatures of the eddy current around it. But the initial interaction as to why it just doesn't connect and feed like this is because it's starting to form a magnetic component, but it's not enough. But the eddy currents from it kick in, and then they have polarity at that point. The polarity is then decided, and because they're in the inside geometries of the magnetic component or potential, they don't attract like they normally would. They instead repel. Well, what is the magnetic potential? Well, it's a vortex before it's a sphere, and once it's a sphere, the sphere has the eddy currents around it. You see? So once you're inside of that, the eddy currents are actually what changes that polarity, and then it zips around. So it avoids each other, and rather than it become entropic, it actually goes and connects to the other side and does what it does, which causes separation when it's on the return. And then that's the deterministic factor. It's what keeps it separate in the first place is eddy currents. And you could actually see, if you imagine this picture. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to show that picture. This picture, okay, the one that looks like that, all right? You can see exactly what I'm saying about how they twist around each other before they cross.
You know, you tell Joe you got to put the dots in there.
I
because
forgot to
that's
put the dots, and then I was like, shit, I'm supposed to put the dot.
it's an ancient symbol for energy with the dots. Without the dots, it's just a bad symbol altogether. Okay.
Yeah, not the way it was originally intended, apparently, but you know, we know what they did with it.
Oh man, terrible things. Okay. So yeah, you're working on actually two different levels of energy on there and two different like phases of energy when you do it. It's incredible how it works, and it proves out to be 100% true. And it's kind of crazier than you think it would be. But then again, they keep telling me I'm in a matrix and that Neo's going to show up one day. And I don't mean that in a different way that they use the matrix, because they do that one as well. Okay, or then they tell me there's 50 worlds out there. I think I've heard all of it, and we're in a black hole. That there's a black hole at the center of the planet. Um, and to be honest with you, there's something to that, but not the way they think it is.
Yeah, not the way you think, because it doesn't work the way you think.
Yeah.
That's all. Not in the sense that you think I said I did.
So just so you guys understand this out there in the RAV project, we were looking at how light itself was converting particles into its own structure. Okay, and then that structure would then build out to become matter. Okay, and plasma. And here's something to everybody out there, and I gotta say this, Joe, because I sent the video to you earlier.
Yeah.
They always talk about quantum entanglement, and I don't think they have it right. Okay, so let me just say this: when you pulse the sun, all the planets pulse. Okay, and I've shown that in videos of how it works when you've created another structure out there. They continue to pulse as soon as you pulse the sun. So as soon as I pulse the RAV, these all pulse. Okay, what are they not understanding? They try to say that you're going to have more energy in the next one than you did in the first one. Number one, that would be that you had over unity of system, so that can't be what they told me. I must have that wrong. But it is the answer when you get to the edge of the cosmos and it all returns to the source. You had more energy build up inside of it than you started with, which is true, but you have to return all energy to the source. Yep. So there's entanglement going on everywhere in this, and we can prove it with the RAV.
Yeah, we can. And I mean, the other thing is the situation with atomic nuclei, condensation. You know, and we know what that's made up of. It's made up of protons and neutrons, as they want to say, and this is how they try to balance it out. But when you start to realize that positive and negative are the same exact thing, but it's just the shared relationship between the two that's deterministic of their charge, as we want to put it. Okay, it just simply has to do with density and mass. You start to realize that the only difference is exactly that. So the density levels are higher in the atomic nuclei, but that happens to be it. Now, there can't be any bonding without any electrons. So once you have a free atomic nuclei of something that's neutral and something that is a little higher mass than the glue which holds it together, well, they say, well, you can't break that apart because the strong force. Well, listen, I mean, I can understand the idea that it's held together that strongly, but if there's no ambient energy to glue it together, then I believe that that's actually the same as the observer effect at that point, that there's no observation of it. So therefore, it ends up returning to a pure potential state, the same exact way that the electron, as it goes diffuse, it would never be destroyed, but it would go back to a potential state. And once you have it back in a potential state, it ceases to exist as far as we're concerned. Like, as far as usability or the detectability or anything of that nature. Now, it may very well exist somewhere else, but not here. So, yep, gets interesting fast.
Well, okay. Toymaker asked, "Do you think electrons are particles?" Electron is a particle, but it's a particle with mass. So there's a little bit of different thing going on there, but they're the same energy.
It's a loaded question. Because guess what? It's all the same energy.
It is the same energy.
The proton, neutron, and any other quanta particle. Now, what makes it a particle and this is what I was discussing with Nathan, because that's another thing he doesn't like is necessarily electrons, although he's trying to get on board with it a little bit. See, the whole thing is, and this is what I explained, you can think about it however you want, but you have to think about it some way. And if you're talking about a portion of, energy potential, and we know that portion of energy potential has a function, and these are the separate functions in which it's capable of, then you start to quickly realize that realistically, all it is a quantity. It's a way to think about a quantity of something. It's a potential and excitation. Mm-hmm. So that's it. Like, if you want to see it as a particle, if you want to see it as bits moving about in a field, the fact is that the field has to be quantitative in the way of some kind of measure, or else how do you describe what it is that you're trying to say? But for not any other better way, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I'll be honest with you, man. It changes your mind once you see it all build out. Once you see it's sitting right in front of you, it's hard to deny. Now you can describe it any way you want once it's out there. Okay, that's what I like about the RAV project is we put it out there. You know what I mean? Decide what you want to about it, but the way in order to look at it is simple. The whole cosmos didn't create different energy. We created different ways it's confined. And as soon as you learn that, then it's all the same. Do I really see a difference between a plasmoid and ball lightning? No. Do I see that it was created a bit different? Yes. Mm-hmm. Do I see it has one or two different properties? Sure. Mm-hmm. But then again, so does a particle. Okay. We're really not talking about a whole lot of difference here. The energy is the same. You still have to do the same things in order to spin it. You still have to do the same things in order to confine it. And you know what I mean? Whether it has mass or not, well, then guess what? You're going to find that out. Okay. And
yeah,
I don't.
Yeah. I mean, and I say this, and this is not from a place of like here or there. It's just that at this point, we know what we've seen. We've shown a lot of it, but not all of it yet, because we're still. We want to be able to show it when it's like, here it is, and this is what you do. And that it's the what you do part that I don't want to say we're hung up on, but that we're actively working on developing, right? So, well, I get it. When you see the fractal snow, you realize that for three-dimensional purposes of understanding it is particulate. And if you know that there's a relationship between one and the other, you realize quickly that it's particulate. And as far as what Steinmetz had to say and calling it prehistoric, well, Steinmetz wasn't accumulating atomic mass on the other end of a simple reaction. So, and you know what? That's where I'm not trying to be, like putting ourselves up here or something, but that's not what he was doing. So, the times have changed.
I think though, I think he's making a different point, and I hope he is. The electron does exist. We have a RAV with a satellite out there, and it's an electron. Okay, there's no question it's there. There's no question that we build
Mhm.
out more of them, and it continues to do it. Okay, I have no problem with that whatsoever. In a wire, I still have a problem with it, and this is where I'm trying to come around to Joe's point of view. Okay, I see it just differently. Okay, because of the way the energy flows, but when it comes to that, it's a basic anode cathode thing. It's the dielectric field and the electric field, which are tied together based on frequency, and you're never going to untie them.
Yeah,
But
well, I mean, he's clarifying now. He said one unit of dielectricity, and guess what? I don't disagree with that. One unit. So, what is the unit? Is it a particle? Is it what is the unit? And the idea here is that we know that it bonds things, so that unit can be separate of a field. Okay, because it could bond one time, and you could detect that. Okay. It doesn't have to bond in a lattice, which would be analogous to a field. And it doesn't have to be part of a field. It could be part of another operation with something. This is where it gets confusing. Something else, but just note that what the something else is actually the same. Like that's where it gets confusing because you realize it's different stuff, but it's actually the same. It's just has to do with density. That's it.
well, see, this is why I separated. I said, okay, an electron is based in an atom. It's based in building planets. It's based in, all that stuff when you get to high voltage, except for the line wire. And that's the one thing I have trouble with, okay? Because it doesn't prove out that way. It proves out, like he's saying, between the two lines, you get a bounce back and forth. That's your actual AC right there, is that slush. You know what I mean? But we're
Mhm.
not seeing what's in between it. Nobody's ever seen it, okay? That's the thing. So could it be a bunch of balls going back and forth? I doubt it, but it could be. I mean, but we don't see it, and I don't think Steinman saw it either. So he says it's BS.
Right,
Tesla
right.
didn't see it.
If it's confined, so let's put it this way: if it's an amount of a unit of dielectric potential in motion, okay, then it has a certain density and confinement, and by virtue of three-dimensionally being a density and confined, it and being a unit in unto itself, it then is a particle, which
Well,
tends to be the thing about it. When you start saying all of those things in a line, which is exactly what the argument would be as to why it might not be, it's like, no, but that's exactly what you're defining there is a bit of something.
yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
It doesn't really matter, to be honest with you.
when it goes back and forth, it makes more of an I shape, or you know what I mean, a ratio, than it does a circular shape, which means
Mhm.
it's just an environmental condition.
Well,
But
I
the
told you from the get go
energy's the
that I
same.
thought all it was in the first place was the top half, the nodal top half of a broken waveform that is in a state of perpetual tumbling. That's what I personally believe an electron is, you know. But whatever, fight me on it. I'm not saying I'm right, and guess what? I'll never know if I'm right or wrong, and that doesn't matter either. Like the fact
So,
is that it's something that we use to explain.
so let's dial this back into the tester coil and the motor, okay?
Yes, please.
Because it becomes relevant. I mean, here's the thing: there's only so much you go into about this because A, it's unfinished, and B, it's simplified in the way we did it. But it does come into Steinmetz and how we look at everything. Now, do we see a bunch of little balls in there in a motor? No. But do we have energy coming into it from the environment? Yes. What are we doing wrong? Well, we're using the wrong thing. We're using copper. Copper is absolutely the wrong thing to use. Okay. Completely wrong. Okay. It's too much heat. It has too much buildup of heat. And they probably do that for the energy going in order to create the magnetism. But you can create a magnetism in another way when you take the eddy current and the current, which is based on the inside and outside of the Tesla coil, and you could fix the problem. We're not running it right. And therefore, we get losses everywhere. And it's way too much.
It is way too much. I mean, the explanation of why copper is pretty rudimentary, you know. First of all, they already went with the broken idea of the broken system. So why not further perpetuate it by having further losses? Since the whole entire idea was to make the people making the energy the money anyway. You know, someone's paying for it down the road, right? Secondly, like we said before, you know, our systems work off of these losses. These losses are the electric you use, right? And that's what they bill you for. So having losses in your system is beneficial because what comes in, even if it powered nothing, is never the same as what comes back. You know, as far as metering is concerned, and then you of course have the practical application, which is um, the practicality of when the infrastructure is all set up. Of you have to make choices as to what to use for materials in both products and you know housing wire and things of that nature. Now, the high voltage lines they actually do a lot of times. I believe they use aluminum. If I'm not mistaken. Um,
I think it's
but
aluminum or steel. I think it's
yeah,
steel.
oh, there's aluminum involved in that equation. I'm certain of that. Now, how I don't know. I'm not a lineman. I don't pretend to be. It's not the point. The point is that the main portions of our infrastructure that we use day to day is copper because well, copper is abundant and it functions, it works, and it perpetuates the idea that it makes people money. So you know, it makes sense as to why that's the case. But um, you know, what's insane is could you imagine if you know the radio in your house was so built in to everything that you could never change it to a flat screen TV? You know, you like where nobody's willing to make those changes. Like everything else changes around it. We repave our roads. I mean, we do so probably less well than we used to, but we change the materials that we use frequently. As far as you know, even asphalt and stuff like that, and how they recycle it and the stuff that they add into it. You know, they have a new cement mix every couple of years that does something else. You know,
Yeah.
uh, everything that we rebuild the better way. Nobody wants to tackle the grid. Nobody wants to touch that thing. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's like what is it? The Romans used volcano ash, and it was way stronger than most stuff. So it still stands today.
Yeah, and it was self healing.
And what does that tie into? Well, if you keep burning it more, you just get graphene out of it. So what does that do? It's what 10 times stronger than the Roman concrete itself. I mean, it's all depending on what level you want to push it. I'd say there's reasons to use copper when you want to heat it up, but not in a whole system. Every line to line, you want to use silver or use graphene, something like that. Only when you want to create magnetic value should you get into some kind of thing like copper. Okay, because they're good at that. But then again, once you start wrapping things with plated steel or soft iron, I should say, or you get into ferrite, you can change that as well. But then again, I mean, you could just use I don't know, hardened volcano. I forget what the name of it was, but you could use that as well. Um, the lava, when it hardens, it makes a material. I forgot what the name was. You can use that as well. So it all depends on which type you're trying to do, and just have to change the motor metal. That's what I'm trying to say. Because you can wrap this thing in bismuth as a motor metal, and it'll spike like crazy with voltage. I mean, I go right to the roof, and then copper with that would do really well. But
See, and that's where 3D printing is gonna show its true colors, once they really truly embrace it to its full potential, because once they're able to use materials that they were not able to practically have inside circuitry because it had material limitations, right? Well, once they're able to sit there and put it only where they need it in the configuration that they need it, and they don't have to worry about bending it or running it or anything like that at all, then all of a sudden, you're gonna level it up. And they figured this out before 3D printing in the method of microprocessors, just using lithography and etching and so on, along with electroplating to make profoundly small circuitry that was exactly the material that they wanted in only the thinnest layer possible. And then they could go at it and build it up layer by layer by layer by layer. And then you could pretty much have it do whatever you want it and need it to do. The thing is you got to remember, even with something like a microprocessor, right? They're trying to avoid the very things that we're trying to create. Everything about how that works, okay, is to avoid these. Basically, it's a controlled short circuit, kind of, in essence. It's not shorting out, but it's kind of a controlled short.
yeah, well, that's what they, yeah, that's what they do. You're basically saturating a field in order to turn it on. That's all you're doing, which is a
Yeah,
short.
right.
It's connecting one side to the other, but the third side already has it, but they're adding frequency to it at that time. Yeah, it's fairly
Right.
simple. I want to say hi to Mike out there, Fairly Research. He's got a show coming up tonight. Um, and Mike was sick last week. So
Welcome back, Mike.
Michael back, yeah. So there he goes. I'm back.
Right on.
Nice. Oh man. Also, I just want to plug tonight. We're doing Travel of Fools channel, man. It's gonna be totally awesome. We have a special guest coming on, some young lady out there for ghosts and stuff like that. So that's gonna be cool too.
Nice.
For most of you out there to come and check that out, man. So let's get back to the conversation, Joe. So here's the thing, man. I think the motors is pretty much set. That we're not going to get much better than the way we have it unless we add more caps. Number one, let it charge longer in the beginning, duty cycle it after the caps so that we can get the magnetic field to go in cycles. Okay, because either you need a resistor at that point or you need a duty cycle in there in order to slow down the current flow to go into the motor so that it pulses like you were saying earlier. Then we can get it to run better. Okay, those are the steps. Schottky diodes, we add more caps, but we add them smaller because you want a fast charge and discharge rate, and then you want to add a duty cycle to it. Okay, and then you can get it to run better. Okay, that's just in a conventional setup from a Tesla coil. If it's running at a pulse motor, it's different because you're getting, not that high of a frequency as we are in a Tesla coil. So it takes a lot to yank that sucker down.
Yeah. And I mean, I hate to say it, but I think that kind of summates that. It's you judge whether or not the practicality is there. I mean, it seems like, I mean, you could always pull off whatever you want to, but you do have to ask yourself at the end of the day, is it practical to do this, and what's the necessity? And I think that rides that line of things, which, and then I hate to say it, but proof of concept, sweet. But that's about it. That's about as far as it goes, unfortunately. It's even if things were rigged up different, like we were saying, and you know what, we had free energy transmitting through the airwaves and you could pick them up, what you quickly realize is that your motor is going to have a secondary functionality to it to be able to pick up, receive, and rectify that much stronger signal. And it's not going to just do it on its own. And it's really only in that context that there's any practicality, is if you don't need any power source whatsoever and you're able to run it totally remotely.
Now,
So,
let
you know,
me tell you,
that's it. Like, unfortunately, that's the reality of the Tesla coil driving a motor, I think.
but let me give you a caveat because they're coming out with static electricity motors and they're
Yeah.
just starting it. Where does the Tesla coil shine in that?
Well, yeah,
Because
vectoring.
I,
Vectoring and upping the voltage into a current state, you know.
because it's high frequency. Now with those motors, that's a game changer
Mhm.
because now you could take the Tesla coil and get a good conversion out of it and run those. I think that right there is going to be the whole game changer for the Tesla coil altogether. Running a amp based system is not good for it. Running a voltage based system is beautiful for it. Okay, I'll just say that. So
Sure, but
that
but you know, at the end of the day, mechanically, this is the conversation of horsepower and torque.
no, I understand, but I'm just
Mechanically, that's the conversation. So you know, it's you can have something do a lot of work, a lot of work, very very slow.
but
You
this
know, like
this is why
that's
you
sort
do
of
the
it.
conversion on it, Joe, so that you have all the information, have it written down, and then
Right.
when it comes to something like that and you want to use it in your system, you could do it.
Yep, it's electrical gearing. It's what it comes down to. That's what transformers are.
Yeah.
And like we said, what is the Tesla coil anyway? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's just a high frequency transformer. It just has no core, so it has no magnetic value to it. That's all
Mhm.
that it is. It's
Uh,
I'm
I mean,
I
there's
hate
more. I mean, that's downplaying, you know, something we play up often. But yeah, you know, I
well,
mean, that is all it is.
it is, but the special thing about a Tesla coil is not the energy that comes out of it per se to spark something or to run a motor. The special thing about it is how frequency and resonance work. Because that's the whole goal of a Tesla coil. It is not the energy coming out; it's the resonance. That's the biggest part for people to even clue into. Is they think it's a spark plug. Well, yeah,
Um,
sure it is, but that's not the part you want.
I've been saying it lately, but I'm gonna say it again because you said, you know, the part that people kind of need to focus in on. Focus in on this energy vectoring, right? And what the energy is doing is deterministic of what properties it has in its electromagnetic mode. Okay. And is equal to, not analogous to, equal to, and the same as dimensionality. Okay. So what ends up happening is that you build dimension with literally all the different vectoring that occurs. And what is the dimensionality of something that has a path is creating a geometry. So now let me put it all together for you. You have static as a magnetic vector, so to speak, right? Which is not in motion, it is a point. And as a point that is not in motion or in relationship with any other point, it is zero dimensional. Okay. The static is zero dimensional. And as soon as it starts to move, okay, now all of a sudden there's another point. It has to have something it's moving to, right? So now you have a current. That's what a current is, okay? And that is therefore one dimensional. Okay, now as soon as it is able to creep outward or inward,
Hold on.
yeah,
Did you just say current has no movement and static has no movement?
no,
Okay.
No,
Okay, go on.
current has movement. So now the static point and another static point have a relationship. There can be movement. It has to move to something. So it's now in motion. That is your current vector, and that is one dimensional. Okay. You double that to 4 points at least. Okay. And then you have a plane. Now it could go back, forth, out, and in, and that is a scalar plane. Okay. That is the nature of that vectoring of scalar, which is now 2 dimensional. Okay. Well, as soon as you take that scalar plane and you add any height to it, now you've entered into the next dimension, okay, which is a magnetic component. All right. That magnetic component is 3 dimensional initially, collapses to 4th dimensional, okay, once stabilized in a magnetic field. And you have to understand that there's difference between a magnetic component and a magnetic field. So a magnetic field that has actual magnetism is 4 dimensional, whereas a magnetic component or magnetic potential, right, is a 3 dimensional field. And that about does it for all of your energy vectoring that we know of. Okay. Now there's other byproducts, and this is where Nathan and I got into talking about the eddy currents. Well, when you have that collapse of the 3D to the 4D, okay, it's by virtue of what's created in itself and the flow and movement around the sphere, okay, that leads to the collapse in the internal geometries. And that's by virtue of the eddy currents, because the eddy currents are moved by the surface torsion layers of the magnetic fields. Okay, and then they actually pull because they're cyclical and have magnetic component themselves. Bring in now magnetic component not being the same as magnetism, right? We understand that, and that's how we know when you said, well, eddy currents and magnetic fields don't get along, right? Well, that's true, because things fall outside of magnetic fields. These fall inside of magnetic fields. And that's the internal geometry. It dictates that. That's what keeps the torsion at where it needs to be, and gives it its furthest expanse. And it's that relationship there that keeps that in check. So it's all really important to realize this stuff. That it is that these points and these vectors build up the geometries, and that if you build the geometries, you're working with the vectoring.
I'm just going to say this out loud. When people talk about time dilation, they do not realize that without the eddy current, you don't have it. You have to have counter currents in order to get it. And that's why it's always a mesh.
Oh yeah.
But that's time dilation. So it readjusts the time and things. Okay, you got to understand this. Time is emergent, and it emerges between the 4th dimension, as we usually call it, and the 3rd dimension. But that's how it's doing it. Okay, we're using time dilation in order to pull it through. We do it in planets, and this is where physics has it wrong. They still think that everything works on the same time. It doesn't. Every planet works on a different time. Every sun works on a different time. They all have their own fields. Okay, it's literally how it works. But I'll get to this. When we look at the environment, we're looking at it wrong. Okay. Yes, it's the difference between your anode and cathode, but what is it also? It's the difference between a magnetic field and eddy current field. Okay, just think about that for what it is. They're still spaced out. We still got a bunch of distance between them. But if you want to get into what it is that we're going to have to contact, I'm going to amplify my eddy current until I turn my aluminum into a superconductor, and then I'm going to use that to drive it in a magnetic field. So that's the
That
simple
makes sense.
answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. See, mechanically, that's like saying that, your piston's gonna, hit the top. It's gonna knock the valve open. The valve's gonna hit your camshaft, right? But at the end of the day, you know that if your piston hits your camshaft, you're fucked.
Yeah.
you know, like that's kind of what it does. You see, like, because then the camshaft is regulating what the pistons are timing is and what that's all doing. But if the piston doesn't knock the spring on the head, then the camshaft, and vice versa, and the cam doesn't hit the the spring on the head, then the entire relationship is thrown. It's incompatible. They need they're parts of the working system. They
Yeah.
both need to be present. But when you bring two different field geometries into it, and one has eddy currents, and then it's coming into contact with another magnetic field, basically you're taking a piston from another engine, hit the camshaft of the working one, which has field, interaction at that point, which it would want to throw it away, push it away, because things don't like to collide with energy like that. And that's actually exactly, once again, we'll say that's exactly why the RAV actually does what it does. That's exactly why. Because it does it over and over and over again at multiple different places until it forms. And then once it forms, it's there and there and there and there. That's what it does. Pretty cool.
Okay. Hold on. Says, hi, Joel. Question. What about the light, particular in the magnetic field difference of the two, not the same light um, particle is what?
Wait, let me read that myself. Hold on. What about the light particular magnetic field difference to same as light particular is what? I'm not sure that I fully understand the way that that's worded, and that very well could be me because I've worked all day. But I'm gonna take my best stab at it.
Light
Um,
particle.
yes. So, uh, as we've said, every form of energy in that's not in a pure potential state is going to be somewhat describable as a particle. Okay, and if an electron has mass and a proton and neutron has mass, you just have to realize that light in itself is just a frequency band of energy. So there's a certain amount of particulate that that would contain. Now, I mean, I know that science explains it one particular way. I kind of look at it a little differently. I don't see light as a broken wave form to describe it as a particle. For me, I don't see it that way. I see it as a broadband spectrum of waves. Okay, so um, now the reason that they may see it as particles actually coincides with why I see an electron as a particle. Okay, and it would actually explain quite a bit. Now, if you have multiple bands of frequencies that make white light, okay, and we know that we could split these frequency bands into their constituents and have it actually separate out into all the frequencies in order, right? We know this. That's what a prism does. Um, Now, when they're transient, okay, when light is non manifest and transient, I still believe it's still in that broadband wave bundle. Okay. But what happens when waves of different frequencies are bundled and traveling together? Okay. Well, what you end up getting is interference. And when you have cancellation of mid waveform cancellation, okay, you're going to end up with something that would appear as a particle. Okay, because for the same reason that I said that I thought an electron was a node that's been basically sliced off of a waveform, right? If you imagine that in your head, actually, right? If you have a waveform and you slice it, so only the top is there, but you take into consideration that it had motion, right? Well, what would it do if you cut it off at the middle? It would start to tumble. And when the top of a waveform would start to tumble, you'd have a leading edge and a tailing edge that would just be tumbling itself. And what does that sound like? A particle? Sounds like a particle to me, you know? And it would be the same thing with light in that circumstance, I believe. But it would be, because it's broadband, it would be exponentially more.
Okay. Can I show you something, Joe?
You absolutely can.
You see all the little dots? You see how they amplify when the RAV itself amplifies? So
Oh, yeah.
you'll see them do that. That's your
Mm-hmm.
photon. Higher energy state is your photon. What is light speed? They say it's the distance it travels in between the two, but it's instantaneous. As soon as the center amplifies, they amplify.
Mhm.
But when we saw it amplify, and you can see it here, as soon as you amplify the center of the RAV, what does it do? It puts the rings around it in the white rings and it builds out just like Joe said. And then it goes over and it touches this little particle here, okay? And it lights it up and you get your photon. That's the speed of light. But
Yep.
that's exactly how it's working. It's
And
building out the spherical nature, right? It hits this and it turns on, but that's just how fast it goes.
now, Toy Maker's saying, is it the medium that's waving? Yes.
Well, light
Pretty
doesn't
much.
have a, well, light has
Yeah,
a frequency, so it
it is
does.
the medium that's waving. And the thing about it is, and I'll say it, and again, you can fight me over it, but I think it's all sound. It's just all sound. There's no sound in space. Well, okay, maybe not in the sense of hearing it like that,
Are you kidding me?
but
There's sound all in space.
right. It's still the closest thing that it transient energy of any kind is basically what we would know as sound.
Yeah, well, you've got solar wind in space. I mean, for God's sakes, there's sound everywhere. As soon as you get near the sun, it's loud as heck. I mean, we can pull up any YouTube video next to the sun, and you're going to see, hey, there's sound all over the place, and it sounds like the high voltage whistle of plasma, like Sean showed. Okay, and the beat frequency that Sean showed in that. I'm just trying to say, look, this right here is, it's not light that's moving between the two. It literally is the amplification of the RAV itself, the energy that it puts off that you're not seeing, that goes over and hits that little particle and then makes the thing amplify. Okay. It's not light itself. Light speed is not that. It turns on the light at a certain speed. It's not the speed of the light. I think they got that one screwed up.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I agree. I agree with you wholeheartedly, man. It's not what we're seeing. It's not. It doesn't fall into line what they say with our understanding of the explanation of the things that we're seeing either. And the things that we're seeing are consistently and constantly falling in line with known accepted science and how things work on a bigger scale. And there's a lot of things that uh, the modern understanding assumes or creates formulas for and stuff where there's no credible observation because the things that they're looking at, the sensors are just they're only picking up part of the story because they're just simply not sensitive enough to be able to get data rich information that far away in space. They're
yeah,
just
you
the. You see what their imagery looks like. Their imagery is like one pixel is two galaxies and a whole bunch of dead zone in between it, and it's a single color, and that's the average of the sum of that general area, and then they're drawing conclusions and formulas around it, and you got to wonder whose head whose ass they have their head up, because I don't really know. It's whoever's paying them. I'm certain.
Well,
you know, like it's crazy. And no, there's no light particles flying all around and shit like that. That's insanity. Okay, as I mean, you could think of radiation that way as well, but once you realize that your energy wants to deteriorate matter, that's its entire goal. That's how everything works, right? And that when you have a piece of pure energy flying off of something at matter, it affects the matter around it. That doesn't make it a solid particle thing either.
but
It's just doing what energy does, right? And light's no different, because all
right,
light is radiation.
but they say light's a photon, and let me just say this: when they say photon, they just mean it's a higher energy state, and it puts off the light, right? So it makes perfect sense when you understand everything's dark and everything is, when it gets hit by the energy, puts off the color, right? But that makes sense because that's still a photon. It's still acting the same way. It hit a higher energy state, therefore it has light. It produces the color that we see all around us. That's all that it's saying. Now, the actual field builds the same way that when we get out to the outside of any round structure that's in there that's energy, it actually just pulsates, just like we just saw, and the rings go inside and the rings go outside. And that's all that it does. Okay. It puts an energy state, it goes one way or the other, and, or both, I should say, at the same time. And that's what creates your light. Okay.
Yeah, and once you okay, and I've said this thought experiment before, but I think it's appropriate now. And there's probably some people who haven't heard it, but there was this like point in my life where I turned on, and I was in a dark room, and it was dark where I like couldn't see anything, right? And I knew where the light switch was, and I walked over to the light switch in the total darkness, and I turned on the light, and then bang, the room was lit, right? And for whatever reason in that moment, I realized something so apparently obvious, but yet I feel like you never think of, which is that there's no light in your room per se like that. Like your room is not light. You've lit the surfaces in your room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the light can reflect off of, okay, is what you perceive as light, because that's how this all works. You see, there's only two places where light is ever manifest, okay, and that is either at its point of emission or at its point of interaction, okay, and you realize quickly that any empty space in your room, okay, that you're looking at, it's not lit. It's dark as the sky at night, which is why the sky at night is dark. You see, it's the wall that's lit, it's the floor that's lit, it's the ceiling that's lit by this light, but everything else, this light is non-manifest where I'm waving my hands right now. Where I'm, well, no, that's not true, because it's manifest on my
On your
hands.
hand,
See?
yes.
But not in front of my hand, not on the back of my hand,
Yeah.
not where I'm waiting, not where it's about to touch. It's
But that's
non-manifest there.
but that's the photon state. It's a higher form of energy. So when they do this and they talk about like a nuclear signature in a rock, okay, or there's radiation in a rock, you know that rocks glow orange with radiation, right? You can get it to do it. All you have to do is bring the energy state of that rock up. So once you heat it, it'll become orange and it looks like it's glowing. Okay, but that's just a higher energy state of the rock itself because it
Mhm.
has radiation in it. It's activating that. It does it all the
Right.
time. It's a trip to look at. They'll glow in the dark, but that again, it's just a photon effect.
Right, because it is a state of high excitation. And someone in the chat just said it, I don't know who, but right, whatever it's hitting is going into a state of excitation as soon as the light hits it, and it's absorbing much of it and reflecting some of it. And that's why I also said in the past, which is another apparent thing that we don't think about. Okay, when you see something that is like yellow or greenish yellow or whatever, pretty yellow, makes it look green, but what color is this? Well, we'll say this is yellow. Why? Because that's what we observe. But you know that the reality of it is, what is it? It's actually everything but yellow. So what yellow actually is, when you see it in terms of matter, okay, that's not an emission. Yellow is everything but what we see as yellow. So it's actually deductive. It's like we call it what it's not. Now, when you see a yellow light from like a low pressure sodium lamp, for instance, or something like that, well, that's yellow. That is in fact yellow light that has been put into a coherent state, and that's why the rock glows orange. It glows orange because that is actually orange. It's putting off infrared band light because the high energy state that you're seeing is manifesting as heat that is entering into a state of entropy. So there's an exchange, right?
Yeah, I'm not calling light a wave or a particle. I'm saying it's the excited, you know what I mean? The higher energy state of the particle. That's it. It's just a higher energy state. That's all that light is. It's a higher energy state. I'm sorry. You could say there's no particles, there's no this, and if you keep saying there's all this stuff, you end up with zero. You have nothing in the universe. We're all sitting
Well, I
around here.
truly
It's
don't
dark.
believe that light is a particle. I think that
Well,
light
yeah,
is a
but
wave.
I don't.
But,
That whole wave term is so overused and so misunderstood. They think everything's a wave. So as soon as, I don't know, they pass gas and say it's a wave. They just
well, I mean,
overuse
there
it.
is the observer effect, but like at the same time, they don't know what an observer is. Now, the funny thing about it is that I said that the observer effect was the presence of energy, okay, put onto it, available, okay, available. So if for its use. So when I said it about the fractal snow, right? I said, well, if it can't bind to anything and it doesn't have anything to energize it, then it actually is going to cease to exist. It's going to fall out as soon as you kill the reaction. You cut the power, it disappears, goes away. It's not it because it's in context. I'm saying that because there's nothing to give it energy, right? It's not to be observed, therefore it goes away. It effectively disappears altogether. That was sort of what I was saying about that, right? So if you yourself have energy and you're seeing it is also putting off energy that's an interaction, maybe that could have the collapse effect on something, right? And if you put a detector, for Christ's sakes, think about what a detector does. You're literally having to have some kind of exchange between it and the detector for it to detect fucking anything. So you have to realize what they're using in order to collapse it in the first place. It's fucking ludicrous. But you understand that there's an energy exchange there, right? So if there's the energy exchange, well, then it exists and it acts as a particle. But if you take it away, well, there's no energy exchange, so then it acts as a wave, right? But the idea here is that for it to collapse into the particle in the first place, it's got to have that power, that energy exchange, right? So if you were to take all the energy away from it in the first place, right, and what usually binds it together and holds it together, right, then all of a sudden it's going to need at least that much energy back in order to be observed. So once whatever's keeping it in existence is powered off, bye. I don't know. It's a lot of words, but it's the best I can do.
I don't think it's a lot of work at all. I just showed the
No
picture of it.
words, I'm saying. I
Yeah.
went on
Look,
about it for a minute, but like, I mean, I think that's the best I can do.
well, look at it again. There's light, and you see it hitting this object, and it lights up. That's exactly how a photon works. There's no getting around that, guys. Is that a little particle out there? Yeah, it is. There it is. There's a particle. I'm not lying
Yeah.
to you. It's right in front of your face.
Well,
We're not getting over it. How does it build out? Well, like I told you before, it takes spheres and then builds out. Now, if you want to call that a wave, God bless you. Go ahead. Okay. I just see it as it builds out in layers because I've seen it in resonant layers. And every time you get there, there's a different resonant frequency of each layer. So, is
yeah.
there a different frequency when it goes in to change the color of it? Absolutely, there is. Okay.
All right.
You could call that a wave all day. And it's irrelevant to me because I see exactly what it looks like.
All right, check this out and keep on playing this video because it's beautiful. All right, looks like a galaxy, doesn't it? Right now, if you notice something, you have the cloud at the bottom, and the way that it's lighting up the surface with this cloud that exists is inverse of the light emission that's occurring in the RAV itself. Okay, so you already can see the separation that's occurring with the white hot and infrared coming off the RAV versus the ultraviolet spectrum that you see as it starts to ionize and take everything in and out in exchange. Now, where else do you see this? Every single galaxy you look at, where it's hazy and cloudy and blue and purple for the most part, you know, because and not everything works this exact way. Believe it or not, the inverse could be true too. You could have a totally white ultraviolet center with an infrared outer, but I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that that's not advantageous for anything much to exist there because the energy depletion of any matter within that that hot zone is going to, you know, it's going to be non-manifest, meaning that the entropy is going to be all screwed up and it's going to be extremely high entropy, you know, bias to energy. And that would probably actually lead to the sun then burning out, or whatever star, I should say, not the sun. That's our thing. This whatever star would burn out.
Okay, let's look at something different. How about this? Now this goes directly into, is it a camera lens effect? And it's absolutely not. Here's your light. Here it is building out into the RAV itself, which is the plasma. Okay. There's your conversion. Why do we have vortexes? Because it's breaking the plane. You could see it. I'm not lying to you. Look right in the center of it. There's a big X right there in white. You could see it. Okay.
Dead on, brother.
It's been there the entire time. They're not in the same type of dimension, right? You have light. It's like going through a black hole, and then it's coming out as plasma on the other side. It's clear as day.
All right, we're I guess we're saying it, huh?
Yeah.
The lens flare is not a lens flare. It's never been a lens flare. We caught slack for saying it at first, and we died down talking about it. But the fact is that is actually the capture of the high energy state, which is four-dimensional in its nature. So it's actually covering much more area than you see. Okay, and that's why it changes in its size and relationship as you move the camera, is because like any four-dimensional object, when you're moving in and out of it, it grows and shrinks and moves with relationship to the slice of it that is in your dimension. So as you move about the third dimension and you move through this thing that we are actually in when you create the RAV and that flare, it moves along with you based on the slice that's in it. Okay. And that is the high energy state. Okay. We thought, and like I kind of always knew that there was more to it, but it was just easy to say that the RAV was the high energy side of this reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, it's not. Okay. And that lens flare is the high energy accumulator that occurs. Okay. And it does mirror the RAV because the RAV is actually the pump that feeds this phenomena in the first place. The RAV is the asymmetric equilibrium mixer of the non-equilibrium states that are created by virtue of the reaction. Okay, and the other side, okay, you actually get another lens flare type effect on the other side, and you also get the pseudo-physical manifestation of the self-organizing atomic nuclei fractal snow, as Sean has so wittingly called it. Okay. And those are the three parts of this. And they all work in conjunction with each other with the RAV. And then even though the RAV is on top of the intermedium surface, okay, the RAV also extends on the other side of the intermedium surface in its inverse state as well. So what you end up with is a RAV that's anotically biased. Okay, you have a RAV that you don't see that is cathodically biased. Then you have a low energy state well, and then you have a high energy state well. And what we've been calling the lens flare is the high energy state well. So there it is, boys and girls. It's here and not here simultaneously. We can only observe a little slice of this high energy state well at any given time. But it is, again, in direct relationship with the RAV.
Let me ask you something, and
Sure.
I'll ask the chat this as well. We'll give them time to answer, Joe. If you had to come up with one word to describe this picture, what would it be? Now I know what I would call it because I know the interactions that are going on and where the energy is, right? And the fact that, let me just say this, there's a dimensional wall between the two. Okay, I'll just give them that.
Yep.
There's a word for what we're looking at right here. And everybody talks about it, but nobody knows what it looks like. I do, because we build it. So, yeah, fart particle was not it. That would have a lot more gas and structure.
Is it a screwy screw?
Huh.
No. No.
No, how about a implosive charge collapse? Yin and the yang?
I mean, that's not wrong. You'd
No,
be
it's not wrong.
surprised how many yin yangs there are in this, is really the fact. Because everything is a yin yang in this. It's just repeating over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
Similar to a berry point. To the berry point.
How many holes are there, huh, Nathan? Ironically, how many holes are there, Nathan?
It could be started with holes.
We were right all along before we even got on these subjects. People, there are 3 holes.
Yeah.
There are 3 holes. Motherfucking Mike does solved it.
Yeah, he did.
He solved it. There were 3 holes.
Okay, hold on. I gotta keep reading these, Joe. Toroidal field compression. The R ray. Tor of Tors. Man, I really like this guy because he thinks like me, but no, it's not a Dookie sprinkler.
Yo, we should totally name it the Dookie Sprinkler. Yo, I got to be real. We should sell this for exactly what it is, get everybody convinced, and then be like, well, since it's ours, we get to name it Dookie Sprinkler. That's it, yo. I'm in. That's got my vote all day.
The repulsion reattach. Okay. Oh, geez. Well, sorry. Yeah, dispatch it like we're passing. We're talking about gas here. Okay, just understand this. You want the highest energy state possible, right? So what creates the highest energy state possible?
The Father.
It's you're looking at the center of a gravity well, which is the 0 point.
Yeah. And
This
it,
this
yeah.
is the point where energy is converted. This is pure energy state. That's what it is.
That's true.
It's there's no null in there. This is your energy state.
Mm-mm.
You're
There is so the null zone is actually that's loaded though. I can't say I disagree with that. It's not that it's null though.
the divider's null. As it goes through, it's null. Guys, you got to understand when you go to tap the 0 point, where do you tap it? When do you tap it? What are you looking for? You see, this right here, it'll build out in the center of our planet and it'll pulse back and forth to each other all day long. Where's the 0 point in your planet? It's right in the center, but have you ever seen it? Do you really understand what it is? I mean, that's the point of the highest electrical value in a system, which is light, which is plasma. Okay? You're not getting two higher energy states than those two. It's just all the radiation is right there, all of it.
The fact is that the reaction is happening under our feet as we speak and always has been. It's the same exact relationship of the energy exchange, asymmetric energy exchange from atmosphere to earth, down into the crust and through the crust, forming states of equilibrium on the bias side. In this case, you got to remember that the charge state, as we would generally call it, right, being deterministic of an anode or a cathode, if we know that it's directly linked to mass, then you understand that the Earth is going to have the greater mass than the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And you would understand that the cathodic side of the reaction would be then here, underneath us. We know that there's two sides of the equation going on. They pose that whatever matter is on Earth, whatever elements, were basically brought and deposited here. But the fact of the matter is that when you get down into near the core of the Earth, everything is in a state of pure potential, whether it's in a state of matter or not. It's the same, and it's broken apart. And when it gets returned, remember it's an exchange, right? As it returns and it makes its way up, it deposits itself in relationship to the conditions and the resonance that it's in. And the elements that are formed in that regard. They weren't deposited here. This could have started off as a ball of hydrogen only to end up exactly this way. And we could have ever-changing elemental deposits that are happening currently that had never been here before.
So in that, I got to give a shout out to Merkaba. He sent us a video that says you take an ultrasound and you put it into mercury and you can create different elements out of it. just understand this. And what we're looking at here, there's ultrasound in it. They're inside the plasma layers. Okay. They're inside the light layers. It's transmutation. It's literally the point where it mutates light, which we all are, into plasma, which is a physical structure. Okay. Just understand that this is the transmutation point. This is the higher point of energy. As it transmutates, this is the point in which light becomes matter. Okay? That's it. You can't get a higher energy state than that. You just can't.
And
You
the
can
other thing
say,
about it too is for us, see, the importance is water, right? And that tends to be the um, common denominator in terms of geologic formation being anything elemental, right? Is that everything reaches the water, and then it's in the water state that it begins to um, crystallize.
mhm,
And that's no surprise, you see, because it was drawn to the water because of its conductive property. And water is kind of a trick to energy because it has so much hydrogen. Okay, and it's right next to the one thing that could make hydrogen return to an energy state, being oxygen, other than being plasma size. And it's drawn to it, and it thinks it could free the hydrogen out, but the thing that it doesn't know is that water is really stable. So what it ends up doing is it tries to defeat it, and it disperses a whole bunch of its energy into the water, in an effort to actually free the hydrogen, because the water is a hydrogen trap, and all the energy wants to do is return the matter back to an energy state. That's this conflict that exists. Once you understand that the energy is always trying to return the matter back to an energy state, you realize how water becomes counterproductive for that, because it's a lock. It's
mhm.
a high energy potential energy lock. Well, it puts all this energy into it and throws it into all different states, and throwing it into all those different states actually rearranges all that molecular potential as it does try to return hydrogen through electrolysis, and that transmutates into leaving behind a slurry or a slush or a brine solution under high pressure that could then crystallize as actual matter.
Mhm.
And that's what you see time and time and time again. It's they've kind of got it wrong, that part. But you know what? We don't need to preach these things right now, because when you prove the rest of the stuff out, which is exactly what is happening right now, right? The rest of it'll fall right in line because it becomes apparent.
Mhm.
This is the paradigm shift.
Now, I brought this picture up because I want to show you something. And I just want to bring your attention to this. Everybody says this, okay? Is it a lens effect? And I'm going to tell you right now it's not. And I'm going to show you why. Take a look at the what you would call a lens effect, which has the pink around it. I want you to see the white line that goes straight down to the center where the big white line on the bottom crosses it. Okay? And I want you to see the actual energy that comes off of it in the sphere around it. You just took light and shot it across and created plasma in the center. And I can prove it. We have the actual image of what that looks like. So
You
just
want to
take
show
that.
them the structuring real quick? Because I think
Oh,
that's where it's at.
it is, but I want them to understand this a little bit first. You are literally looking at it where it's taking and it's using what looks like a magnifying glass as a lens effect. It's the magnifying glass. It's taking the light and focusing it. It hit a particle. So as soon as it hits the particle, it built out itself into energy right there. Okay.
Mhm.
It hit this little tiny piece and then boom, it has this, energy state right here. Yeah, it looks like a halo. Okay.
Now, hold on, before you show the goods, before you do, let's hear in the chat, how many of you think that what we were showing you is a lens flare? Still think. I'm curious to know. Like, because just go ahead and
Okay, I'm gonna pull it down.
let us know. Yeah.
I love this picture, man.
All right.
Hold on, let me see if I have the other one that I sent to you. I got two of them that are really good. Oh, I need to show the other one first. Okay, sorry. Wow.
All right. Dennis says it's both an artifact and a lens flare. Yep. Yeah, he's saying, yep, a lens flare and more for me. But I think that this is also going to tell about lens flares generally, more so than optically explainable. Okay, but it's how it's capturing it. We agree is by virtue of a lens flare, but it's not what it's showing, and you'll see. All right, I think we got some answers in there. Let's go ahead and show them.
Okay.
Oh, there's your lens flare.
So what it actually did, and this is, I got to tell you, this is how Sean forms a RAV on a pinpoint. He can do it in water when you have particles of matter in the water. Okay, just little small pieces of it. Look at it. As soon as it hit it, it structured a cavernous structure. Okay.
Can you show them the blown up one?
Yeah, I'm going to in a second.
Okay.
I wanted him to see the energy around it. You see how it builds out? It still is showing you, hey, if you think it's a lens flare, it's still showing you. I'm telling you it's not because of what it's building in the core of it right now. Okay. But the way this is formed when we do it is a little bit of energy comes down, it hits the tip, and then we stop, and then we do it again. And what this is a cavernous structure that puts off the aim to swirl the plasma to make the actual RAV.
It allows for the asymmetric exchange.
Yes.
Because it forms, it's not solid like it would melt if you were to melt it with a torch where it drips down. It literally collapses in formation.
Yes.
In a poofy kind of way.
So
almost like a slag. Which, by the way, is probably why some slag rocks, just by virtue of how they're formed in arc furnaces and so on, probably why slag rock has weird electromagnetic functions themselves, but I digress.
Okay, give me a second. I think the other picture shows it a little better as if I zoomed in, but
I've shown you some zoomed in. I've sent you some zoomed in ones too. But yeah. So now when you understand that on the other side of this reaction where this snow is forming, okay, and it's forming out dendritically, okay, it's actually forming out dendritically in this exact three-dimensional lattice formation, fractally, which is why it's helical. Now, that is your smoking gun. It is the geometries that we've been discussing all along. It is one of these guys.
It's the smoking gun. Oh, the smoking plasma.
All right. Look familiar?
yeah.
Tetragrammaton you got going on there.
What's up,
Now
Bernie?
go back to the picture. Now, what else do you realize about this? Once you start connecting dots, you realize that not only is it a tetragrammaton, but what does the tetragrammaton do? Because it's all present and geometrically correct in 3 dimensions. Well, it squares the circle with the triangle. It has all the functional geometries in the proper spot and proportion.
It's what do you think, Bernie?
I think it's all very synchronistic, happening, exposing itself for a reason, because it's just the architect of our universe. Essentially, it is the God code, and we're cracking it. And I love the work, and I'm just here to listen.
What this is why you get to a 0 point, the highest energy possible, because you're converting what we are, which is light, into plasma, which is what we are. We start out as light, we go to plasma, and we still have light in us. It's always
Now,
been there.
by the way, this is the Father, and the Rav is the Son. Okay? So where's the Holy Ghost? Well, the Holy Ghost is the satellite that forms, and the satellite is always there, whether you see it in its bright formation or not. You'll always see the secondary dot that is in locked position.
So
That's the transient between the Son and the Father, is that Holy Ghost.
Sorry,
So,
I'm driving. I'll be back here in a few minutes.
yes, sir.
I'll be
Oh, thanks for popping in, Bern.
Oh, well, love you guys. Love what you're doing.
So I'm going to show something right here. We were telling you that the RAV itself, when it builds out, it's literally building the structures. So I want you to take a look in your upper left-hand corner and look at the structure that's there. Then look in your right-hand corner where we built out the RAV. I want you to understand we're looking at the same thing here. You are literally looking at them putting this into rock. They're describing plasma. They're describing plasmoids. If you look further to the rock on the left, it's a plasmoid. That's what those items are. You look and see the swirl. The swirl's 100% there in between the two. Everything that you see on that rock is sitting right in front of you in plasma. It's also, just so you can see it right there, you see at the bottom, that's our magnetosphere. You see the plasmoid building out in it on the outside? This right here is the exact same structure. You could see it building out on the outside. You could see where the lines are and where it builds out. This is why planets build out in where the sun builds out at, the lines where it builds out at, where the energy is. And depending on what side of the energy that you're on, is how much energy is in your planet. This is you see the rainbow in it? It's all a mathematical fact when you put it all together.
That's correct. And by the way, when we found the chalice, okay, we traced, I traced the chalice out.
Mm-hmm.
And I drew all the fields that I gathered to exist, right? And I was like, it looks familiar. I start researching it, and that was exactly the correlation that was brought up, was the magnetosphere of Earth. That it was exactly, precisely, proportionally, everything the same about it. And what that means about Earth is very interesting. And I'll throw this out there for people. And I'm not saying this is definitive, okay, but it seems, it's like kind of got a good case for it, huh? But the RAV doesn't always have to be hot.
No.
Right? The RAV just has to be equal. Okay, or asymmetrically equal. It needs to be equilibrium and balance. You see, It's the balance point of the rest of the system that allows for the rest of the system to actually take place. And when you look at Earth, you realize that in our particular case, we could well be something to either the RAV itself, an analogy to the RAV itself, or at minimum the satellite of the RAV, the Holy Ghost part. See? Because again, it doesn't have to be hot. It just has to be in equilibrium. So if the asymmetric equilibrium is cool bias, then you're going to have a lot of trapped high energy state in matter, which means that because it's trapped, okay, it's habitable. Because that's what it's doing. And at the core, you see, is a whole nother story. But at the outer rungs where we are up here, we're just seeing the fruits of the process.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the deal.
Yeah, you can already see this thing. It's starting to change. When you watch the video of this and you watch it in slow motion, you'll see the pink structure right there on the end. It'll rotate back and forth on the outside of the bubble that you're seeing going on there. And in doing that, it'll try to decide whether it wants to be on one side or the other. And it goes to a higher energy state as it's pushed closer to the outside of the bubble, and to a lower energy state when it's inside. It's an interesting watch. I have it on my other channel on my shorts, or you can watch it. I believe I have it on the membership channel as well in the shorts. It's a fascinating video in what you're actually witnessing here. You're seeing plasma play out in in our solar system. It literally describes one or the other. So,
Yep.
but it also is an ancient writing. That's scary, guys. How many years has that been carved into the stone?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, once you understand what it is to form the RAV, if you're a guy like me, you start to also realize things like, well, we have energy. How come I can't be a RAV? But, is that what has happened throughout history? Did people understand how to harness this literally within themselves? And what does that mean for the alchemical change of your biological and psychological processes? Like, what does that mean when you create this separation of the hot and cold and you let it come out in just the right way? What does that mean? And just the physical energy that you have. There's all sorts of sides of this that could have been well understood a long, long time ago, that goes and explains myths and legends and everything like that. And I'm not saying that I believe that unequivocally, but there's reason to believe that maybe that is the case. I don't know that they had the ability to form this with high voltage arcs and this, that, the next thing. There might have been a totally different mechanism that just follows the same exact principle, because you just come to realize that everything comes to be this way. This is the crown of creation.
I'm looking up the video for everybody because they were looking for it. Let's see. I'm not sure which one it is. Oh, this is a real good one. Okay. I love this. This is in super slow motion. Now let me rewind it because there's something you might be missing. There's an exchange that just happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we missed. I think we missed it.
Yeah, hold on. So you see it? You see it built out. You see the structure, right? There's your light structure, no question, where it is. Okay? Look what it's doing right now.
Yep.
Right
It's
there.
reaching out to it. It's pulling in from it and feeding to it.
There's your exchange.
That
It
is
just
the exchange.
pulled. It just pulled the light right into the RAV, and the RAV amplified. Take a look at it again. Play around
I
with
mean,
how it
we've seen,
works.
by the way, we've seen these things eat and put out the RAV, the 9.
Oh, wait, I'll show you. It's just converting back all day. But that's your exchange process. By the way, it puts out Joe's worm.
Yep. Yeah, that one was chucking all sorts of crap out of it because it's in such direct relationship in that case.
It's interesting. It detaches from the anode altogether.
Yeah, right. Detached altogether from the anode, but it's still there.
That's pretty ironic, man.
Right. And hold on. Any questions? You know what I mean? Like, this should be on the news, man. Like,
yeah, it does look like what Terrence Howard's talking about because he was actually saying something that was true. They just tried to, trip him up with stupid things. I'm just saying, guys, it's right in front of your face. You can decide what you want. I know what it is. Joe knows what it is. And as we start breaking down more footage and we go from regular footage to slow motion and everything else, this is why we want to do a whole series on it, because it's showing things that you normally wouldn't see. And we're showing them in detail of how they actually come together, how they split apart, how energy's formed, how it pulls through the medium, all of it. And we have the proof, we have the crystallization, we have the energy transfer here, and we can show it go from light to plasma to light, and it's the conversion. That's what's going on here. We're pulling it through. We're pulling through that dimension in order to get it. But we also showed where it shoots a beam of light out and it creates it somewhere else. So just understand this when we go to say, well, how did we get our sun? Just understand this on a small level is comparison to the big level. How do you think we got it? Because there's a particle in space doing. What was going on with 3I Atlas? Why was it acting the way it did? Because it was literally structured plasma. It wasn't a comet like they think. Inside of it, you had a RAV inside of it. That's why you get the color difference between the spectrums. And Sean has this on his spectrum analyzer, where it'll actually show you on one side that it's blue and the other side that it was red, I think it was, because it's to the outside spectrums of the light. And it kept flashing back and forth. Well, this is why, because it was never a tail. It was always structured plasma.
Because it's doing what we've proposed that it did all along, which is separating the differentials.
Mm-hmm.
It's and it's interesting because even though it is what it is, it could be the same but in different ways depending on how you configure it, what you bring into relationship with it. Because again, it's the same as building out fields. So when you bring more than one RAV into the same ecosystem, for instance, it changes the relationship. When you put the matter constituents, as different material, the contents of it is different. It's still doing the same thing, but at the same time, it's doing it with different bits and pieces. It's kind of like how a car is a car, but a Ford isn't a Chevy, right? It's similar in circumstance to that. And, you could build it in different ways to actually achieve different things. And the things that it achieves is everything.
Okay. You guys want a transmutation. This is crystal.
Mm-hmm.
This is transmutated crystal. This is not the snow. This does not go away. This stays on the surface of the clay itself.
And what did Sean get on the spectrogram reading on that?
I don't remember, to be honest with you.
I don't remember either.
It's literally crystal, though.
Mhm.
This is why things are so important. It's a transmutation. It's got a crystal structure. You can't get away from it.
Does it build up and get thicker? I believe so. As long as it's in the equilibrium zone where it's recombining, then it's staying. If it's outside of the equilibrium zone, then it's fractal snow and it goes away. So the more you run it, I would presume the more it builds. I know that Sean has several examples that have several deposits. So yeah, I think it does build up.
Yeah, it's a little more than the star in the jar because it's in open air.
It's an open air, and it's under control. It is whatever we put in it. It doesn't have to be an intermedium. You know, right? The Star in a Jar had a lot of contingencies there. You know, it was relying on the difference in the medium, you know, to push the cavitation bubble out to cause a vacuum. You got the excitation, but the fact is that that excitation was limited to whatever was in that bubble. We can put whatever we want in this bubble and make it out of all sorts of various proportions of energy. That's the thing. You move the proportion of energy, and it's still a RAV, but it acts slightly different. You see, that's it. It has to do with the proportion of the energy, which is directly correlated to the frequency and the voltage and the mass.
So far, Joe, we've shown light to plasma, and now this is plasma to crystal.
Right. We've also shown plasma to light, like
Yeah,
not plasmatic emission of light. We've shown plasma throwing off light. Yeah.
yeah.
We've shown structuring of something that no one's ever proposed to existed. Nobody's even ever said that exists. I mean, we know it's the 0 point, but that's so vague. What does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, we know what this is.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing, though. It's just the highest state of energy. That's it.
Yeah,
And
it's a well, right? It's a well of the high energy potential. Yep.
It's a well that's continuously running. Okay.
That you can structure.
That you.
Yeah, right. You can structure it well.
So you look at this and you go, well, what's the moon made out of? Mostly crystal. Mostly crystal, and it's combined by rock. Oh, well, that's pretty interesting, right? What's going on in the core of our planet? Well, it's a lot of crystal. Every time we get to a cavern, what's building out in it? Crystal. Why? Because of the way this is structured. It's mimicking everything the Earth does. Okay? How do we get oscillation in the Earth? Well, crystal. Every time it comes through there's a frequency in the chamber of the crystal.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally.
So hold on. How does elemental dust form? Right. Well, I mean, the answer is, well, if it's not forming on a substrate, right? So if you have this forming in thin air, it can only form one molecule, one elemental molecule like this at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a couple of them will incidentally bond while they're still in a high energy state, if they're able to. If there's free electrons, if they're in an electron cloud, which this has, okay. But once it falls out of that, then its bonding event is over. So whenever you see a dusty ass planet that's just covered in dust, well, that's because it's matter creation was not on a surface. It had no seed, you see? That's the key, is the seed. And that's the one thing about the Rav that makes the Rav, is that it needs a seed. The clay was the seed. The ball of metal that it forms is the seed that it's creating in its own, resonance patterns. Without that, it won't form. It needs that seed. So it'll still create matter, right? If the matter is created on the surface of the seed, then it crystallizes in a very solid lattice form, and it structures large macroscopically as a lattice. If it forms in the cloud, it's dust.
I just want to tell you something, Joe. And this goes back to something you told me a long time ago. When we 1st started doing this, Joe came out with a list of exactly how everything works. Okay? The spoken word creates it. Now think about this. If you're light and the spoken word creates it, the cavernous structure is pushing that sound back to you and flipping into itself. So it's folding on itself into plasma. Okay?
Mhm.
Just understand this. Joe told you this a long time ago on exactly how it works. The spoken word. So what is it? Okay? If you're light and you speak a word, all you're doing is putting frequency in the cavern, which allows it to flip to plasma, which is exactly the conversion we just showed you.
Don't
Joe had
disagree.
it a long time ago.
Oh yeah. We could show you an episode where we explained it without knowing what we were talking about. We're like, well, this is what I think, but I don't know how, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
It just took a little fumbling around and Sean to read 2 lines out of a dated book that he's had for 30 years for him to be like, this guy wasn't able to get this to work all the time. I wonder if I can. That's what it took. Because once I saw this thing, I was like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been talking about all along. This is it. I don't know how yet, but we're going to figure it out.
By the way, it's what makes Sean an intuitive genius. The
Yep.
catch just pulls experiments out of left field and has them right every time. And what I find hilarious, and by the way, I have to go visit where he lives because I have to go to that thrift store that he goes to. Like, I don't know how it works, but like miracles happen in that thrift store where he gets everything that he needs. Like, it just magically appears to him or something, and he takes it home and creates all these cool experiments. It's like truly magical, man. I
Seemingly
gotta see
how
that
it
place.
works. Yeah, seemingly how it works.
Yeah.
Well, good things happen for good people. That's what I like to think.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's kind of cool, guys. So what we're gonna do, like I said, is we're gonna create a series on this, and we're just gonna go through it. We're gonna call it Project Rav, and we're gonna go through it and show you the clips like this and exactly how Sean did it. So he'll go through and he'll build it, and then we'll see the end of it, like we see here in the crystal formation on the last video, and we'll explain it. And we'll keep doing that until everybody kind of gets where we're going with it and how it builds out. And it gets better and better. That's the crazy thing. It continues to get better because when you start to see the process unfold, it's like dominoes. They just start to fall. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
then we'll bring in the stuff because when you think about it, you have a spherical structure that's actually built out in resonance, but which actually builds out in the harmonics of it in the fifths, which actually gives you superconductivity and everything, and actually shows the geometrical patterns that we all look at. And everybody goes, well, that's fringe. Well, all those things happened in the Rav, every single one of them. And then you go look at everything around the planet and you go, well, that was carved into stone. How does that fall into it? Well, it's right there. Well, if you have energy in your planet, guess what? When you get to an orgonite, where's the energy coming from? Well, it's still coming from the planet. You're just drawing it in. Guys, it all makes sense now. Every bit of fringe thing we've always been talking about is actually real science. We
Yep.
just didn't get to that point where it became science until now.
It was an effort of connecting the dots there's no new discoveries, no new observations, even just connecting why and how and in what proportions. And once you understand, if you could get a physicist to understand and say, okay, well, you understand a spark gap and an anode cathode relationship. Yes. Well, we understand how the Earth, draws a charge from the Earth and lightning connects to it, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, so far so good. And then you understand electrolysis. Yes. Okay, cool. And once you just get even that far, you're halfway there to understanding it. It's like, okay, so what happens when you create a differential on two sides of things and they meet? Okay, that, right? Okay. And when the energy's traveling this way, what is that? Oh, that's a current. Okay. And then when it switches to traveling this way, because that's what would happen here, right? Because what you just said, yeah. Okay. What happens then? And then you let just tell them what they already know, show them what it's doing, and then you see it, and you're like, yes, exactly that. That's what it's doing. Things apparently do that,
Yeah,
Things
I love
apparently
that.
do that. Right.
Joe's famous saying, "Things don't do that."
Yeah, things don't do that. No, things apparently do that.
We're gonna have to change it. Oh, I love it, Bill.
Yeah. So and that's the way it has to be, because that's the way it is. You see, it's all been figured out already. They just haven't connected the dots. And the whole entire reason is because everything that we do in both theory and with engineering on the electronics end of things, it avoids the one thing that we're doing, which is interrupting a circuit, but allowing it to feed. That's it. You're interrupting a connection of an offset bias, but still allowing it to connect, because you got to remember that things are only as insulative, okay, until you reach the threshold where they're not. And when you cross that threshold, you would immediately say that's a failure. You see, if you were running any kind of electrical system and then all of a sudden the thing is arcing to it and it's trying to pull out and the thing starts hissing, and then all of a sudden a huge ball of fire forms on a surface, you're going to say that this failed. That's not what we wanted to do. End of story. And you don't even look closely at it. You just consider it a failure. So avoid it at all costs. And then obviously, if you're bringing something like that in and it fails and it's in close proximity to other stuff, yeah, guess what? Form a RAV on the motherboard of your laptop. See what happens. You know what I mean? About this sort of thing. Like, yeah, it's going to dematerialize all sorts of stuff. Your laptop's going to smoke. Other things are going to fail before it can perpetuate any further. The thing's going to be fried. It's never going to work again. And then you're going to say, this thing's a piece of shit. I'm sending it back to the manufacturer under warranty. And that's it. But that's not what it's meant to do, right?
Yeah. So give me a second. I want to pull something up because I want people to see it, and I want you to go visit something. Okay, so go ahead and talk for a second, Joe. Just give me a second. I'm looking for it. Oh, where is it?
Okay, I'm going to address something in the chat while you look for that. So Robert says it's not transmutation of element, it's bonding, but how? You make some serious monies if you figure out the bonding. Okay, so let's break this down just real quick. All right, I'm going to do this in less than 2 minutes. All right. You're creating the plasma. The plasma has a draw and an opposite side. Okay. The chase separates the differentials. I'm not going back into how RAV works because we've discussed it exhaustively. All right. You have a low energy state on one side, and this low energy state is atomic nuclei with no electrons. You have high energy state being deposited on the other side, and that's pretty much all electrons. All right. In the middle, you have the RAV working as a centrifugal pump, basically. Okay. That's keeping an asymmetric feed of high and low energy states between the two, allowing for the perpetuation of the reaction. Now, if the RAV contains both the high and the low energy states, and they're not allowed to mix, okay, the RAV also has another side to it, okay, and where the in between of these two RAVs are, now you do not see the other RAV, okay, because the cathodic side's weird. We'll get there another day. The point is that there's a relationship that always exists in the intramedium, okay, and it exists in the immediate area of the RAV's field, okay, because there's multiple fields in play. They all work off of each other like gears. Sort of how it goes. Anything that's not inside the RAV, but inside the RAV's field, okay, is in a state of mix, asymmetric, stable non-equilibrium. All right. There's points where it crosses. Okay. And I have multiple pictures of that here. I'll put my hand over the one that Nathan doesn't want me to show. And you can see this one right here. Okay. You can see that there's multiple points in the intramedium where it crosses. Okay. In that entire zone where it crosses, you have free atomic mass and free electrons, okay, which all they want to do is bond, because without one, but for not one, then not the other. And all the energy wants to do is either attack or bond this matter. That's the matter's trick. You see, the energy wants to attack it and break it down, but if it's not coming in at a high density level, okay, then it's not breaking down anything any further. Plus, it's already been broken down. So the only thing it's going to do is actually get snatched up by the atomic nuclei. Why? Because the atomic nuclei has a greater mass. Follow? Okay. Well, now you've accumulated electrons, okay, on this piece of atomic nuclei. But now you have more atomic nuclei and more electrons. So how are they structuring? Based on the resonance of that particular zone. And the resonance is not one thing, okay? It's not one thing. It's multiple frequencies, because each line that goes in has its own frequency that's interacting with the field. These create offset beat frequencies and overall resident frequencies, okay? And it acts as a code. This code creates a standing wave, and the standing wave structures exactly what's going into place. As soon as it's structured, more moves in and structures that same way. And because it structures the same way, and the molecules bond together in their formation, that's analogous to the formation of themselves in the first place, it just is a repeating fractal pattern at that point. That's how it's both transmutation and how the bonding occurs. That's how the crystallization occurs. It doesn't occur in the non-equilibrium state. The non-equilibrium state is needed to perpetuate the entire reaction. The rebonding occurs in the equilibrium state and is dependent on what I just said. The multiple frequencies, the offset beat patterns, and it's not just boom, 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 the beat, right? It could be boom, 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 boom. I said it's all sound, and that it's all different notes, okay, and all these different pitches, and combined with the beat, the pitch and the beat, it's music. The music structures what it is. It's crazy because it's exactly what it is. Literally, you could run a song through this, where if the song were able to translate into that beat frequency and pitch, right? It would structure the matter the same as the song.
Well, that's why, just so you know, certain pillars around the world, and I think it's in India, They have pillars, and if you turn them on their side, they are frequency. You actually either have a song in there, or you actually have something important that they wanted to tell you, and it's all in the pillars. If you look at them, they're rounded and they go like this all the way up. Turn them to their side, put it through a program, and you're going to find out what they were trying to tell you. Anyway, I wanted to show this. Merkaba had asked us, and I'll do it in a future episode as well. I gave the link to it, but I want you guys to see this because you're going to love it. Okay? And it ties in right to what we're talking about here. And
Yep, let's go.
Here we go.
Substantial and lasting drop in electrical resistivity. And that, my friends, is the smoking gun. It is the exact electronic signature Fenning's theory predicted. It's real-world experimental. Sounds like it's straight out of science fiction. Dynamically doped liquid superconductors. It's a pretty wild story, folks. It kicks off with a claim that sounds an awful lot like alchemy, but it ends with a technology that could literally change the world as we know it. So, let's get into it. So let me just start with a question that, honestly, feels like it should be asked in a medieval lab, not a modern one. Can simple sound waves, just sound, actually turn one element into a completely different one? I mean, that idea alone pretty much challenges everything we think we know about physics. Because, believe it or not, that's the core claim we're digging into today. There was this really controversial experiment that suggested if you blast liquid mercury with ultrasound, you could actually create gold, along with a bunch of other stuff. So what on earth is going on here? To figure that out, we have to start with the experiment itself, because the results were, and I'm putting this mildly, completely and utterly shocking. Okay, so back in 2017, a research team reported something that just sounds, well, impossible. They took regular liquid mercury, hit it with some seriously high-powered ultrasound for just 3 minutes, and watched as part of it just turned into solid grains. And here's the really weird part. This happened at 260 degrees Celsius. That's hundreds of degrees above Mercury's normal freezing point. It just shouldn't happen. But the real bombshell dropped when they actually analyzed those solid grains. They found a whole zoo of new elements that just weren't there to begin with. We're talking everything from superlight lithium to heavy hitters like gold and even radioactive thorium. It looked for all the world like random modern-day alchemy. But was it truly random? For a few years, this whole thing was just a weird footnote, a scientific anomaly. That is, until an independent researcher, Nicholas Fenning, decided to take a much closer look at that list of elements, and what he found was a stunning, hidden pattern in all that chaos. And this number right here, this is the key, the absolute key to this entire puzzle. When Fanning analyzed the properties of every single one of those new elements, he found a perfect correlation, 100%. 100% correlation to what, you ask? Superconductivity. Yeah, you heard me right. Every single product element, from the titanium to the tin, all the way to the gold, is part of this exclusive club of materials that can become superconductors. Fenning gave this a name, the quantum selection rule. It was this massive blinking sign that whatever was happening, it was anything but random. And this is the point, you see. This pattern changes the whole story. It goes from being this bizarre, no way that happened kind of anomaly to a genuine scientific mystery that needs a solution. It's a puzzle that suggests some new kind of physics was at play, a hidden mechanism that for some reason loves to create superconductors. So, to explain this puzzle, Fenning came up with a whole new theory. He calls it the runaway galvanic boost, and it is a totally radical way of thinking about how matter can be fundamentally reorganized. Okay, so the theory starts with this wild idea called the supercoherent quantum state. The thinking is that the intense pressure waves from the ultrasound don't just shake the mercury atoms around. Oh no. They actually force the messy, chaotic liquid into a super-organized, synchronized structure. It's like a mosh pit at a concert suddenly snapping into a perfectly synchronized marching band. And this chart here just nails the difference. In a normal liquid, atoms are all over the place, right? And electrical resistance is high. But in this theoretical supercoherent state, the atoms get organized, they're in sync. And the biggest, most important consequence of that, the electrical resistance should absolutely plummet. Now that's a great theory, but is there any actual proof that sound can do this to a liquid metal?
Yeah.
Amazingly, yeah, there is. Back in 2015, a totally separate, peer-reviewed study did almost exactly this. They took a liquid metal alloy, blasted it with ultrasound, and measured its electrical properties. And what did they find? I'm quoting here, a substantial and lasting drop in electrical resistivity. And that, my friends, is the smoking gun. It is the exact electronic signature Fenning's theory predicted. It's real-world experimental proof that, yes, ultrasound can push a liquid metal into that low-resistance, highly ordered state, the perfect setup for these crazy transformations to kick off. So, if the theory actually has some legs, how do you harness it? Well, Fenning didn't just stop with the theory. He went ahead and actually designed a machine that could control and sustain this entire process. He calls it the Tri-Field Activation Chamber, and it's basically built on a dance between three different forces. You've got the acoustic field, that's the ultrasound to get the whole thing started and condition the mercury. Then you've got an electric field for propulsion to get the liquid moving. And finally, a magnetic field to control that movement, basically turning the electrical input into a nice, stable spin. Now here's where it gets really elegant. The way these fields work together creates something called a dynamo feedback loop. You know that horrible high-pitched squeal you get when a microphone is too close to a speaker? That's audio feedback, right? The sound is feeding back on itself and amplifying. Well, this is kind of the same idea, but instead of making a terrible noise, it's used to stabilize a quantum state. It's brilliant. So let's break it down into 4 simple steps. Step 1, the external
Hey, can
fields
we
get the
pause it real
mercury
quick?
spinning. Step 2, as that
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there was one thing that I wanted to say, 2 things actually, right? So first of all, about the transmutive element, a portion of it. Well, you can transmute it in those cases with only sound, because the important thing to realize about all the listed elements is that they're actually just different versions of the overlying group, which is of the same element. So it's just a built-up version of the lower density versions of itself. You see? So even though they're different elements, right? They are in essence of the same base element. They would go off of the same note, right? So
Hmm.
those things structured in that note, and I don't know what note that is, but that pitch variation lends itself to those that ability to have organizing properties in that way. In what way? Well, in the way that they showed, right, where it's cubic and repeating. Why does something that's cubic and repeating have superconductive properties? Because it is an analog and equal to a pure rest state. You see, when you structure something that's cube, 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 and it's just ever repeating cube, 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 right? That is exactly what pure rest state is. See, there's no incoherence. See, when we call something coherent, we call it coherent because it's specific and the same. Okay, but anything that's coherent, okay, anything that's manifest at all is actually a form of incoherence of rest. Okay, so whenever you're structuring something's lattice as perfectly symmetrical coherence, there is no incoherence in it, which is the same as the rest state, which is the same as no resistance, which is the same as the pure potential, which is the same as the ether, which is the same as the 0 point.
Okay.
You see? Like bang, 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 bang. So now superconductor, and these things have that ability. You could bring the sound in to restructure them that way. You could also bring in other stuff to make them heavier with using sound if you have the right combination of frequencies.
Okay. I just want to point this out. And Mike's got it right. Okay. Shout out Mike Does out there. He's got it right. Why do you think Alexei put in a piezoelectric disc to aluminum? He literally made the aluminum a superconductor, removed the resistance, and there you go. It made it a superconductive element that would eventually self-sustain itself.
Mhm.
That right there is the simple answer of the gravity flyer why he's doing it. Mike said it right. Joe's got it right. And Merkaba, big shout out. He's got it
That's a
right.
great video, and it's a good point. And it's all true.
Yeah. It's literally, if you're into that project, man, you better know that
Mhm.
because that changes the entire project for you and why it's working. It was absolutely amazing that Fenning put it out like that, or Merkaba did. So yeah, I left the video. You can watch it yourself. He's got several more on it if you guys are into it. But there you go, right
Yep.
there's
Well,
the
Mike does his
link.
2 for 2 on the day, huh?
Oh yeah, he got
Yeah, you got the 3 holes right all along, and now he's right on that tip.
that's right. Yeah, it was Merkaba's video. Yeah. So yeah, guys, I would encourage everybody to go to check that out because he's got several videos on it. And Merkaba's awesome, man. By the way, the machine that he did build, and he said it in there, he did build an ultrasonic machine that actually takes and spins magnets and other things in there. And he is using mercury in the center of it. So just rest assured, if you click on that, you want to see the rest of his videos in there for the machine he built. Absolutely mind blowing. Okay. And what he did. So, yeah, shout out to him. We're going to have to watch some Damned Winter videos soon because everybody mentions him. You know what I mean? In what we're doing because apparently he's got the same thing going on that we do in some way.
Oh yeah, there's more than one way to skin a cat, but
Oh yeah,
the fact is that the principle is always going to be the same, right? If you're going to use current and voltage to do it, you could also use sound to do it too. It's just got to be an exchange, right?
well, by the
So
way,
you could do the same thing.
that's why you got to understand plasma makes sound. Plasma is in space. Space has sound. It's all in there. What are you trying to do? You're trying to line up literally that field in the gravity flyer that makes that plasma in that sound with the ultrasound. And as soon as you do, just like Merkaba says, it screams like a banshee. Okay.
All right, all right. I did something the other day, and I don't know how I feel about it just yet, so I was not going to talk about it, but I think I should anyway. All right, I was making a roast on the stove, and I don't have a pressure pot, and I didn't want to have to eat at like 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. So I took a big pot that I had and I put just a little bit of liquid in it. Okay, like a little bit. And I put the roast in there, whatever, right? And a little bit of liquid. I cranked it up and I took a big stainless steel bowl, right? And I put the big stainless steel bowl as the lid. And
Okay.
just as it would, it's going to create a seal, right? So then what I did to keep it from just boiling out was I put water, okay, into the bowl. And now what do I know? A few things, right? I know that it's not going to blow up because as soon as the pressure level gets enough to lift that amount of water at like however many pounds, it's going to blow off and it's not going to be at a dangerous level, right? But now I started the water off cold. This is where it gets interesting. All right. Started the water off cold. Well, that's like thunderstorm stuff, right? But what happens when it gets hot, like a double boiler? Well, let me tell you something. It started boiling all that water. It was not a bomb. It did not blow up. It had a passive, reliable pressure release system by virtue of weight. Okay. Anyway, I digress. So you have all of it boiling underneath, all that heat energy transferring in a more concentrated fashion, okay, then the dispersal of the equal heat in or close to equal, see offset, cooler, but still boiling, okay, from the much larger mass up top. And it's a bowl into it. Remember that. So it has a convection that's swirling and spiraling. You see, I created a tornado inside of the bowl. But the only way I realized that was because I created a tornado on the top of the bowl too. And it was very small. It wasn't like you could stick your finger in it or nothing, but it definitely had a rotation to it. When I went to go check it, the steam was swirling in the opposite way. You see, that is the exact energy exchange. The difference is that I was not letting the direct contact occur. You see, now, if I took infinitesimally small holes and I put infinitesimally small holes in the bottom of this, enough where like it would leak a little pressure, but not a whole ton, you see, then that would be an asymmetric exchange, wouldn't it? Well, what the hell do you think would happen then?
I
Well,
don't know. You tell me, because I'm still thinking boom.
It didn't go boom. In fact, and it cooked the thing in an hour.
Did it really?
And, yeah. Oh yeah, it's genius. You know what I mean? Like way more effective than any pressure pot you could ever have. It twice the danger and whatever. But I'm pretty sure that if you allowed for the exchange between the top and the bottom, that you would have some type of Rav circumstance. It wouldn't be a plasma ball Rav. I'm not saying that, but you would have the exact exchange motion relationship that would exist in that situation, that same situation. You're taking two things that are the same, one with a higher mass, one with a higher density. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you're doing.
I'm telling you, man, you got a pair of steel ones right there, buddy, doing that. I wouldn't do that.
Oh, come on, a pressure pot, you clamp the thing down, and then you're relying on a mechanical valve to save your life. Okay? This, if it could lift 6 pounds, let's say it was 3/4 of a gallon of water in there or something. If it could lift 6 pounds, all it's going to build up is 6 pounds of pressure.
Okay. Well,
right?
I think Mike said try using ultrasound on your roast.
That'll do it. It probably fall apart.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
All right. We're there with you, man. Get your plasma pressure cooker today. Hey, we saw that, by the way. Brendan cooked his chicken in plasma.
He's like, did you eat it? He's like, yeah.
Oh, he did. That thing was, oh, dude, that's so ugly the way that whole process worked. And he ate it anyway. That was amazing.
Disgusting. Let's be straight. That thing was like glowing purple and on fire.
Yeah. Oh, man. Here you go. He says, right there, that fish says it's $1 billion idea, which he just came up with.
Well, they kind of already did it. You see, they did it with hot dogs back in the day where you would just like connect the hot dog between the anode and the cathode, and then it would heat the hot dog up that way. In 1 minute, it would cook the thing to well done.
Oh my God, I did it with my Tesla coil with hot dogs, but I didn't get the plasmoid in the center to blow up. That would have been something.
Mm-hmm.
I did, by the way, for junior high, I did stick things in a microwave, including a hot dog for my science experiment. It was more funny than it was experimental, I guess, because they gave me a C for it. But I thought it was awesome.
You might. Well, I mean, honestly, as a teacher, like that like tops the list of like low effort, low thought process science projects. I microwaved a hot dog. I put it in. Stuff happened. It got hot. one of the ends was still cold. You know, like
In all fairness, I did it with beans too. I mean, like I wanted to see the relationship. Like, yes, I know now. Okay.
I can imagine Nathan in his 6th grade self. My hypothesis is that it's going to get hot. You know what I mean? Like, whatever, man. It's
Oh,
funny.
what are you gonna do, man? It was junior high school, man, and we had to come up with something, and we didn't
Yeah,
have
that's
no
all right.
money
See,
at the
my parents
house.
were divorced, man, and like I got sent home with a science project one time, and like I don't know, I was in 3rd grade or something. Like I didn't read the paper or something. My parents were supposed to help me. It said so on the paper that I didn't read. Well,
Yeah.
long story short, my mom says to my dad, like, he has a science project due Monday. You have to do it with him. He has to make some kind of boat, something that floats or whatever. They're doing buoyancy in school. And my dad's like, my dad, very much like me, you know, actually, well, other way around, isn't it? Right. Long story short, my dad's like, yeah, don't worry, man. We got you. So he goes, cuts, makes like this really cool raft looking thing. You know, it floats good and everything. It puts like a sail on it, a Lego man, the whole 9 yards. Totally, I'm super stoked about this thing. I'm excited. It looks cool, like a pirate raft and stuff. So I'm like, all right, my science project's done. It floats. That was the goal and whatever. So I get to school on Monday, and it turns out that had my mom read the paper and or given it to him and or given it to me, we would have known that the point of making the floating thing was to see how much weight it could hold and still stay buoyant. And this raft wasn't about to hold no more than my Lego man. You know, like it floated because it was wood and water, for Christ's sakes. Like it didn't have sides; it had holes and gaps and stuff in between the pieces of wood that we tied together, man. You know what I mean? Like it was just like the biggest epic fail ever.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, and I
Well,
told my teacher, I was like, I think we misunderstood the project.
yeah. But you could have always taken what diet soda and regular soda in the can and put them into the water and
Yeah,
watch
man.
the one
But
with
nobody knew
sugar.
about that back in our days, man. They figured that one out later.
But
All
he
right,
got you an
somebody would have
A.
known, but not us.
Joe would have been the superstar of that one. Look, it's buoyant. The other one's not. There you go. You figure it out.
No, I'll never forget. One kid basically made a barge out of like 1/8 inch plywood, like hobby plywood and stuff. The thing was like silicone sealed on the sides and stuff. It had, you know, like walls like this big. They put as much weight as they could, and the thing wasn't sinking. It was taller than the water was deep. You know?
Love it. Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
All right, Joe. It's been 3 hours, man. Dude, such a great show.
Awesome.
So much information, man. Yeah, if you guys get a chance, check out Merkaba's channel, man. Give him a shout out, a thumbs up, and a subscribe, man. He's got some cool stuff going on there. You'll love that stuff. All right, I want to say thank you to a couple people out there, man. I want to say thank you to Darren. Gave 5 Old Man Build memberships out, man. Totally awesome. Uh, Richard Presswell became a new member, man. Just want to say thank you.
Right on, Richard.
Shout out, cool. Shout out Travis Fools, man. Members for 2 months, man. Totally awesome show, guys. Going to be awesome tonight.
Traveling fools.
Right on, guys. I just want to thank everybody in the chat, man. You guys have been totally awesome tonight, man. Been a fun time. Hopefully everybody learned something. Cool projects coming up, man. We're going full bore on the Gravity Flyer, full bore on the RAV, and that's kind of what I'm going to dedicate my time to, and just go over it piece by piece, man, until everybody gets it. With that said, I just want to say thank you to everybody, man. I really do appreciate everything.
All right, folks. Happy Friday. Peace and love.
The old man, Bill, man, Bill, man. The old man, Bill, man, Bill. The old man builds, the old man builds. The old man builds is broken in the head. People not seeing reality has put them in the red. Where conscious and spirituality been stricken from the norm and replaced with the ignorance of basic magnetic form. The geometry of God keeps running through his head. That's what makes old man builds broken in the head. The old man builds. The old man builds. Spheres of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. The old man builds. Fears of destiny are spinning in his mind, making him travel back and forth in time, battling the establishment for just a little recognition. Has him forcing the world to understand his premonition. That world will have all the technology in the end, even if it means his life will fail to extend. The old man builds.